Presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. Any reporter who can win a roving commission to discover the mysteries behind the secrets of one or several countries has certainly won his position because he has that special something that recognizes a story even before it is a story. In the likeliest and unlikeliest places of Europe, Mike has discovered intrigue and mystery and has searched behind the veil for the stories that will make the news. Not without danger, these stories have been transmitted to his European headquarters in Paris, and from there they have found their way into newsprint to excite the world. But in a moment, let Mike tell you himself of one such adventure.
Presenting Europe Confidential.
You must be crazy, Thornton. Ringing me last night, telling me to be here with £10,000. Blackmailing me? Oh, that's a laugh, that is.
I want your 10,000 in cash or I'll put the police on your trail.
For what? For the stunt I pulled on you in Genoa?
No. I'm talking about something more serious. Murder.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
This is Mike Connoy. I got into this case because I was in London at the time and because Inspector Marks happened to be an old friend of mine. I had a date for lunch with him 2 days after I landed, and he was half an hour late. Well, that's how a story can start. 2 hours before our luncheon date, Marks was called out on a case. A dead girl in a Bayswater residential flat. Just a kid, a nobody, unimportant. At least until she died.
Now then, Mrs. Forbes, I'd like you to tell me everything you can about the girl.
What is there I can tell you? She came here about a week ago. How was I to know there was nothing different about her?
Nothing different.
She looked the same as any of my other boarders. I took her in, and now what's going to happen?
Look, ma'am.
People will start to leave. I know how it is. First one leaves, then another. The place is tainted. It took me years to build this into a decent, respectable place. Now that's all going to be ruined.
I appreciate your problem.
Years it took me. But people won't come to live where there's been a murder. I didn't deserve this.
I doubt if she did. And wailing about your luck won't help anyone. You, the girl, or me. Now then, what was her name?
Jane Ferris.
A week she'd been here, you said.
That's all.
Any idea where she lived last?
None. I got the idea she might have been abroad somewhere.
Abroad? Any special reason for thinking so?
Just that she said there was a sister living in London, and she hadn't seen her since before she went away. I didn't ask where away. I'm not one to pry.
No, of course not. A sister. Now, I wonder if her name would be Ferris.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, then she told you the name.
Well, not exactly, but she left a letter in the box downstairs to be posted. So I've got it here. I thought you might want it.
Thank you. Mrs. Evelyn Greyfair, Clifton Avenue, Kensington. Oh, that's very helpful. I don't think there's anything more just for the moment.
Sure.
Quite sure, thank you. Mrs. Evelyn Greyfair, Clifton Avenue, Kensington.
Mrs. Greyfair, Inspector Marks from Scotland Yard, madam.
Thank you, Gordon. From Scotland Yard, Inspector. This is rather unexpected.
I've come concerning your sister, Mrs. Greyfair.
My sister, Jane.
I have some rather bad news for you.
What kind of trouble has Jane got herself into this time?
She's dead.
What?
Murdered.
Murdered? Inspector, you don't mean Jane murdered?
I'm sorry. She was found dead in a bed sitting room at Bayswater. She'd been strangled.
Jane dead like that?
Yes, this is rather a shock to you, I know, but better from me than reading about it in the newspapers, ma'am.
The newspapers? Well, my husband will see it.
I expect he will.
Oh, but this is dreadful, absolutely dreadful.
But what do you mean, Mrs. Greyfair?
My husband's a well-known city man, Inspector. He's the chairman of companies. Our friends are respectable people.
Oh, yeah?
My sister's been a source of embarrassment to me since the day I married. I managed to conceal most of her. Well, you don't want to hear about this.
On the contrary, I do. How did your sister earn a living?
She was a dancer.
I see.
I wish I did. She used to work at a place called the Paris Club.
You didn't like her working there?
Well, hardly. I went down to that place and tried to reason with Jane. She was strange and stubborn.
How long ago was that?
Oh, it must have been all of 6 months. We quarreled, and I haven't seen or heard from her from that day to this.
You didn't try to see her?
No, can you blame me? After all, a dancer. It wasn't as if she was a good dancer, just a girl in a line.
Perhaps she liked it.
She could have got other jobs. She had a talent for art once, and wasted talent now.
You can't tell me anything else that might give us a clue to her murderer?
I'm afraid I knew nothing about my sister's private life, nothing at all. I can only suggest you try the Paris Club, and that person who runs it. I think his name is Brewster. Benny Brewster.
Well, that's how it all began. An ordinary, routine investigation into murder. If murder can ever be ordinary. Inspector Marks called a halt at 1:30 p.m. and remembered that he was long since due to meet me at the press club for lunch. And over that lunch, I first heard about the life and death of Jane Ferris.
So there it is, Mike. My excuse for lateness, and my reason for having to hurry off from this very excellent lunch.
You're going to see this guy Brewster, are you?
Yes, we want to get the business cleared up as soon as possible.
I suppose the rules prevent me from coming along.
You?
You'll just sit on the sidelines and watch.
Well, I don't know, Mike. I don't think I've ever read any rules about that. Suppose we finish our coffee and find the Paris Club.
The Paris Club is a basement room. Nothing about it resembles anything Parisian. You go down a flight of narrow steps away from the crowds and the London traffic into the musty and stale atmosphere that's a replica of 100 other places in 100 other cities all over the world. When we arrived, waiters were setting up the tables around a few square feet of cleared space called a dance floor. In the background, a jukebox was working overtime.
Yes, I'm Benny Brewster, mister. Now, what did you want to see me about?
The name is Marks, Inspector from Scotland Yard.
Cops? Sorry, policeman.
I want to talk to you about a little...
Wait a minute, I can't talk out here. The noise makes me nervous. Come into my office. Now then, Inspector. Now, what do you want with me? I'm law-abiding, honest.
Mr. Brewster, did you know a girl named Jane Ferris?
Janie, yes. Yes, she used to work here.
Well, how long ago did she leave?
Ooh, 4 months. And she didn't leave.
Sacked.
Yeah.
Any particular reason?
Now, look, mister, who I hire and fire's my own business. I run a respectable place here.
Before you go any further, I'd better tell you this. Jane Ferris has been murdered. I'm investigating her death.
Murdered? Things like that make me nervous. I know the signs. Girls who start playing around with needles. Oh, they make me nervous.
Needles? You mean drugs?
What else? She got mixed up with Harry Klein and his crowd. I didn't want her around.
Harry Klein? That name's familiar. Who is he?
I don't know.
Where did the girl go after she left here?
No, that's something I can tell you. She went to Italy. They even sent me a little card with a drawing she did on it herself. It's funny that. There you are. With the poor kid dead, I reckon you might as well have this.
Yes, I'll take it with me. Strange sort of sketch. See it, Mike?
Yeah, an old man sitting on what looks like the steps of a cathedral or something, feeding the birds.
And the postmark's obscure. Italian stamps. Did the note say from where she posted it?
Oh, some place called Genoa.
Yeah, Genoa.
Only I wouldn't know. Foreign travel doesn't go down with me. It makes me nervous, and I have to take things easy.
We left the nervous nightclub owner, and Inspector Marks went back to Scotland Yard. I had a kind of a hunch that behind this case was the sort of story I could use. So I made further appointment to see Inspector later that afternoon. When I met him, his news was not very encouraging.
Looks as if the case just peters out, Mike. No more leads. No one saw anybody enter or leave her room at the boarding house. No fingerprints, nothing to work on.
What about this guy, Klein?
No, he's known to us all right. What you might call a big operator. Runs crime on an organized basis. Specializes in blackmail and drugs.
Oh, nice guy.
Charming. We pulled him in and questioned him. He admitted knowing the girl, but there's nothing else we can prove. He had his lawyers with him, of course, laying down the legal procedure.
How does this guy get away with his organized crime, if you know about him?
Simply for lack of evidence. Oh, well, we're going to keep working on it, of course. Perhaps we'll come up with something.
What about the Genoa angle?
Yes, I'd like to follow it up, but that's out of our province. We made a routine inquiry through Interpol, and the Italian police don't know the girl.
Inspector, supposing I wanted to take a trip.
What do you mean?
To Genoa.
Find the church, eh? And the old man.
And maybe get a lead on what she was doing in Geneva. And then maybe, well, just maybe, they'll tell us why she was murdered.
I don't think we'd miss that sketch. I don't think we'd miss it at all.
The city of Genoa is a place of palaces and churches built on a hillside that looks down on the blue Mediterranean Sea. I had as an official guide one of our staff in Rome who'd flown up to meet me. All I had to do now was to deliver a story. Together we roamed the city streets.
Signor Conaghy, we have walked a great way, but nowhere is there a church like this.
Yeah, we've sure covered the churches. What are those spires?
They belong to the church, the cathedral of the Annunziata.
Wow, from here it looks beautiful. Now, if I was an architect, I could really appreciate this tour. But then architects don't get sent on jobs like this.
All right, you are.
Yeah, it's too bad. Hey, wait a minute. Look.
What, Signor Conaghy?
The steps. The cathedral. Look, the old man sitting there. Look what he's doing.
Why, it is a replica of your sketch.
A perfect replica. An old man sitting on the steps, feeding the birds. The old man's name was Guido. He spoke a brand of English cultivated for the tourist trade, and his eyes lit up with recognition when I showed him the penciled sketch. Well, Guido, does it mean anything to you? You happen to recollect who drew it?
Yes, I remember. I've never forgotten her.
Her? Then the girl did draw it, eh? Jane Ferris?
Her name was Jane. She came here in the spring. I remember that the birds loved her.
The birds?
This man, senor, he believes the birds are the judges of good and evil. If the birds stay when a stranger comes, then Guido talks with him.
I see. You haven't frightened them away?
They stayed for her, just as they stay for you.
Mm-hmm.
She was very beautiful, and the birds would feed from her hand. She used to laugh then. Somehow the whole Alva Garibaldi would seem a cleaner, brighter place.
Look, I want to find out what happened to her here. Is there anything you can tell us?
You are searching for her, senor?
Well, not exactly. She's dead.
Madre Dia dead. Oh, but she was so young.
I'm trying to find out why she died, Guido. Anything you can tell me will help.
Of course. I will tell you what I can. The first time I saw her, she was with someone. A man, tall, dark. A man I did not like. She called him Harry.
Yeah, Harry Klein. Must have been. What else, Guido? Did you hear anything they said? Anything at all?
I heard a little, senor. I did not care to listen, but they came close to me, to where I was sitting here on the steps of the Annunziata.
Harry, what a lovely place. Oh, look at the church at the top of the steps.
This is a spot I've picked, Jane. You're to be here at 10 tomorrow morning.
Oh, I shan't mind. Aren't the birds beautiful?
Chattering about birds and listen to me.
Oh, we frightened them away.
Blast the birds, listen to me.
Yes, Harry.
Tomorrow at 10, Thornton passes this way, going from the hotel to the art gallery. And when he sees you sketching...
You think he'll even be interested?
He's a connoisseur of beauty, of fine painters and beautiful women. You'll be irresistible, Jane. And from then on, it's all up to you. But I know you won't fail me, my dear.
So they left, senor. But the next morning, the girl returned. She sat here on the steps, and this time the birds stayed. We talked a little. Then she began to sketch. And after a while, I noticed an Englishman, a wealthy senor, had stopped to watch her.
Very good. Do you mind if I admire it?
I'm afraid you're flattering me. I'm just an amateur.
But your outlines are good. You've shaded too much here. Apart from that, I like it.
Thank you. That's high praise from Miles Thornton.
Oh, you know me.
I've seen you at the art shows here in Genoa.
Well, how could you have been there and I not noticed you? Do you go to many art exhibitions?
When I can.
There's an exhibition this afternoon at the Palazzo Rosso. Are you going?
Oh, it's an invitation show, and I haven't tickets.
Would you accept my invitation?
That's very kind of
Please.
you, but...
I have a ticket going to waste. Take it and promise you'll be there.
All right, I promise. And thank you once again.
Yeah, I see it now, Guido. So that was the trick, the oldest in the world.
But, senor, there is more to tell.
Well?
The signorina met him often after that day. They seemed happy, so very happy. One only had to look to see how much in love they were.
Yeah, and I'd started to feel sorry for Jane Ferris.
But you do not understand. They were in love.
Oh?
And their happiness was complete until the other man came back to cause trouble.
Harry Klein, yeah, he'd be back.
They were here when it happened. She was finishing her sketch while he watched. Then this Signor Klein, he arrived. There was an argument, but I did not hear what was said.
I suppose it ended with Miles Thornton bringing out his checkbook.
Yes, there was some talk of money. The man, Klein, seemed to be threatening the other. The signorina was crying.
Yeah, I bet that was an act. That's all you can tell me, is it, Guido?
That is all, Signor. They went away, the three of them. They did not come back. And now you say she is dead. It is very sad.
Yeah, it's too bad. Well, thanks a lot, Guido. Goodbye.
Arrivederci, Signor. Goodbye.
Well, there was my story. A game of chisel the rich, unsuspecting victim. The oldest game there is. It was all there now to write and forget about, except that Jane Ferris had been murdered and her death was still unsolved. So I went back to London and turned over my information to Inspector Marks. A few hours later, I was present when wealthy art connoisseur Miles Thornton came to Scotland Yard to be questioned regarding his association with the dead girl.
Well, Mr. Thornton, there it is. We established your connection with the case, and by a stroke of luck, you happen to be back in London. Now then.
I suppose you want a confirmation from me that I knew her.
Well, that for a start.
Yes, I knew her. The old man on the steps was right, gentlemen. I fell in love with her.
Did you know she was dead, Mr. Thornton?
Yes, the story was in the newspapers. It could only have been Harry Klein. When we split up in Genoa, he was swearing vengeance. She wouldn't go with him, you see. She wanted to stay with me.
How much did you have to pay?
£5,000. Yes, I know it was blackmail. But Jane really loved me. I know that. I'll never believe anything else.
So Klein left with the dough, and you and Jane stayed on in Genoa.
For a while, but I had to return to London, and there was another problem.
Her addiction to drugs.
Yes. Klein kept her well supplied. It suited him. It made her all the more eager to work his blackmail schemes. But now she wanted a break with it.
Yes?
You see, we wanted to be married. I really loved her that much. But she wouldn't meet my friends until she cured herself. So we split up. She wouldn't take money from me. She wouldn't even get in touch with me until this drug craving was beaten. I was wrong to ever let her do it. I should have had her with me, no matter what my friends thought. Somehow she must have been located by Klein. And for trying to break away, she was killed.
Yes, that's a pretty theory, Mr. Thornton. But it's only a theory. We can't prove a word of it.
Wasn't there any lead that might link Klein with this?
Nothing. No fingerprints, no witnesses. And with this story, we'd hand Klein a certain acquittal.
Yes, I see that.
We don't even know he is guilty.
But I know it.
Well, this is asking a lot, Mr. Thornton, but would you be willing to give evidence in court? Tell this whole thing to a judge and jury, if it meant catching the girl's killer?
Yes, Inspector. I'll do anything you say now.
But you said you can't go to court with this, Inspector.
No, Mike. I had something else in mind. If Mr. Thornton will cooperate with us, this is what I think we should do. It'll be our only chance of getting real evidence against Klein.
Yes, sir. Oh, it's you, Klein. Come in.
Thanks. I will.
Well, did you bring the money?
You must be crazy, Thornton. Ringing me last night. Telling me to be here with £10,000. Blackmailing me. Oh, that's a laugh, that is.
I want £10,000 in cash, or I'll put the police on your trail.
For what? For the stunt I pulled on you in Genoa?
No, for murder. Jane's murder.
You don't know a thing, Thornton. Not a thing.
I know more than you think. I suppose you feel you were very careful. Do you know you were seen outside her boarding house the night she was killed?
Who saw me?
I did.
Who have you told about this, Mr. Thornton?
Nobody yet. I intend to tell the police if you don't pay up.
You poor stupid fool. You really expect me to pay you 10,000? I'll pay you all right, Thornton. With this.
Put that gun away!
It'll be a pleasure, mister. You think I'd have come here for any other reason than to kill you?
Now I'm certain of it. You killed Jane, didn't you?
Yes, I killed her. I always pay all people who double-cross me. But knowing it won't do you any good, Thornton.
All right, Klein, we've heard enough. Put your gun down.
Why, you coppers.
A trap, and you walked right into it, Klein.
Thornton, you rat.
Look out, he's crazy!
Give me that gun, Klein. Give it to me.
I'll give it to you, all right, copper. Where it hurts most.
Drop it.
Stop! You're breaking my arm.
Drop the gun. Right. Handcuffs, Rogers.
I'll take care of him, sir.
Good. Mr. Thornton, are you all right?
In the arm, Inspector.
I'll call a doctor. We got to look after you. Don't forget, you're going to be our chief witness when Klein goes up for trial.
You've got enough evidence now.
Thanks to you, yes. I'm taking him in to charge him with the murder of Jane Ferris.
You could say that was the end of the story, although the real end came 2 months later when a jury found Harry Klein guilty of murder. So a big-time operator was caught on a rap he couldn't beat, all because of a girl found dead in a Bayswater room. A girl who wasn't at all important until she died.
have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy in another exciting episode in the series Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again, and that's Mike's story for today. Mysterious, yes, and exciting. But then, that's our aim. These stories are exciting. That's why they're worth telling. We hope you will join us next time. Now, goodbye till we meet again for another of the world's greatest mysteries.
Presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. Everybody loves a mystery, and I'm no exception. And that's why it gives me so much pleasure to act as your guide on this series. You see, we've gathered together some of the finest mystery stories in the world. Stories from many places and from many times. Some of them are up to date, well, as up to date as today's newspaper. Others are classic stories of the past. Today's mystery, for instance, it takes place in Europe, the Europe of modern times, a world of intrigue and suspense where a man's life can count for very little when a country's future is at stake. Mike, our storyteller, works in the Paris office of a famous American newspaper. His job is to look for the stories that make the news, and he finds them in the places where the news is made. In a moment, our play begins.
Presenting Europe Confidential.
Mr. Connoy, thank heaven you're here. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do.
What's happened?
Whiplash went out for a walk last night, and he didn't come back. This morning, I found this note under the door. Mr. Connoy, Whiplash has been kidnapped.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Kanoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
My name is Mike Kanoy. I write a column called Europe Confidential for an American paper in Paris. If you eat a certain brand of breakfast cereal, you no doubt see the face of Whiplash Steel smiling up at you from the packet every morning. Turn on your radio and you'll probably hear Whiplash Steel singing one of his latest tunes. And at night, if you're addicted to television, you're likely to see a Wild West picture starring, Whiplash Steel. This guy is reckoned to be the most popular cowboy entertainer of all time, with more fan clubs than a hound dog has fleas. So when he arrived in London recently to begin a grand tour of Europe, I went along to interview him in his suite at the Ritz. I waded through the knee-deep carpet to door 203 and pressed the buzzer. The door opened, and there in all his splendor, toting a brace of nickel-plated 6 guns, stood Whiplash Steel.
Howdy. You're Kanoy, huh?
That's right, Mr. Steele.
Come on in, then. I like folks to call me Whiplash. It was good enough when I was riding the range, and I figure it still is.
Yeah, okay, Whiplash.
Now, shoot, partner. What can I do for you?
Well, as I explained, I write a column. I thought you might like to tell me a few things about yourself. About your past, how you became famous, and your plans for the future.
Always glad to oblige the press, Kanoy. There's a lot of folks interested in me. They like to hear about me, and I don't want to disappoint them. Grab a chair and dump your carcass.
Thanks.
Drink?
Thanks.
Hard liquor's all I've got.
Well, that'll be fine.
Neat? Or you one of them sissies that put water in it?
Yeah, well, neat. Thanks.
You know, I figure it's a real test of a man, the way he takes his liquor. Well, here's looking at you, partner.
Yeah, cheers.
And now, partner, let's hear them questions of yours. First, I guess you'll want to know about my background, huh? I come from an old pioneering stock, Kanoy. The Steels are a family that command a mighty lot of respect back in Arizona. It was my little old grandpappy who blazed the trail out west and set up the Lazy Y spread, and on that spread, Kanoy, I was born.
Uh-huh. Now tell me...
About my upbringing? Well, there wasn't much time for schooling. I never did take the books, but I could have been born in the saddle the way I straddled a horse. It was then, during those long, lonesome nights on the range, that I first started strumming a guitar.
I see. Then somebody heard you and offered you a recording contract?
Yup. I didn't want no part of it for a while there, and I was happy where it was on the Lazy Y Range. But then I got to figuring. I decided that if my songs meant so much to folk, well, it was my duty to keep on singing.
And those, can you use them?
My 6 guns? Use it? Watch. I could drill you before you move the whiskey.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Now, let's hear about your plans for the future. How long is this European tour of yours going to last, and what's your schedule?
My manager's the one who can best answer that. He takes care of my bookings. Burns, come on in here.
Yes, Whiplash?
This here's the reporter fella, Kanoy. This is Burns, my manager.
How do you do, Mr. Kanoy?
Hello there.
Come on in, close the door. Kanoy wants to know what my engagements are. He's writing some sort of big article about me.
Oh, I see. Well, Mr. Kanoy, Whiplash starts off his European tour with a big TV appearance tomorrow night, 8 o'clock until 9.
Uh-huh.
There'll be representatives from every Whiplash Steel fan club in Britain in the auditorium.
The kids, you know. I'm the rival.
Then the following night, Whiplash is star of a big rodeo they're staging at the White City. On Wednesday evening, he has a radio broadcast...
Hey, hold it there. Wait a minute. What's this about Tuesday night? I don't know nothing about no rodeo.
Well, sure you do. You signed the contract 4 weeks ago.
Contract?
I put a whole pile of them in front of you. I started to tell you about them, but you said not to bother you.
Well, tell me now.
Okay. They're staging this big American-style rodeo, and you're the star. You're being paid £3,000 just to ride a buck jumper and sing a few songs.
What? Why didn't you tell me about this before?
Well, I tried to, Whiplash Buddy. But...
You bungler, Burns. That's why I fired my other managers for messing things up.
But, Whiplash...
Shut up. Happens I got something else on Tuesday night, something personal. So cancel the contract. Tell them I can't make it.
But we can't do that. It's signed.
Well, unsign it then. Tear it up. Tell them to go jump in the lake. I'm Whiplash Steel, and I don't stick to no contract.
Whiplash, pal, I'm sorry, but this is one contract you can't get out of. The rodeo will collapse without you. They'll sue you for every cent you've got. You've got to do it.
Oh, yeah? Say, Kanoi, you come on back in the morning, will you? We'll finish the interview then.
Yeah, sure. It's all the same to me.
You know the way, Art. Now, you listen here to me, you bungling little runt. You tell them I won't be there on Tuesday night, you understand?
But Whiplash, buddy...
Don't buddy me. You go right along.
And that was my first meeting with Mr. Rootin' Tootin' Steele. I was not impressed. However, I still hadn't all the information for my story, so next morning at 10, I was back. Burns opened the door, and to say he looked worried was an understatement.
Oh, Mr. Kanoi.
Morning. Is Nature Boy up and about yet?
Mr. Kanoi, I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do.
Huh?
Whiplash went out for a walk last night, and he didn't come back. This morning, I found this note under the door. Mr. Kanoi, Whiplash has been kidnapped. Yes, Mr. Kanoi, Whiplash has been kidnapped. I've been almost frantic with worry, Mr. Kanoi. I just don't know what to do.
You contacted the police?
No, I'm scared to. Here, read the note.
Burns, I've been kidnapped. Tell who you like, but don't let the cops interfere or I'll be killed. Wait until you get another note and follow the instructions in it. Whiplash.
Why do you think they've done it, Mr. Kanoi? Why have they kidnapped him?
Well, certainly not for his beautiful nature, that's for sure. I guess they want dough.
He says not to let the cops interfere.
Well, it's his life and his money, I guess.
Well, what should I do, then?
Well, sit around and wait for the other note. I imagine it'll contain a demand for money and instructions about where to leave it. After the dough's been paid and Whiplash is safely released, the police can have a free hand. And if I know Scotland Yard, Mr. Burns, they'll get the kidnappers.
He goes out for a walk every night before he turns in. They must have known that, and they were waiting for him.
Yeah. Mr. Burns, do you mind if I use your phone? I want to ring Paris.
Paris? Well, I don't know, Mr. Conroy.
Well, there's no point in keeping the story out of the newspapers, is there? I might as well make the scoop as anybody else.
Well, it's publicity, isn't it?
Sure.
I guess so.
And don't worry too much about Whiplash. He'll be okay. This is London, not Chicago. My editor almost skipped for joy when I told him the story. A kidnapping in England is news at any time, but when the kidnapped party happens to be a world-famous entertainer, well, that calls for headlines. Scotland Yard lost no time in contacting Burns, but they agreed not to interfere until the ransom money was paid. While we waited for note number 2, I stayed at the hotel suite with Burns. He seemed glad of the company. In the afternoon mail, there was the letter.
It's Whiplash's handwriting.
What does it say?
They want £10,000. Leave it tomorrow night on the red letterbox outside 40 Gerrard Street at 7 p.m. Don't tell the police about this. Whiplash. 10,000.
Well, you got it?
I guess I can get it, okay.
I wonder if we ought to tell the police that the second note's arrived.
No, Conroy.
Well,
no.
Maybe they could watch the place and then...
But you saw what Whiplash said in his first note. He said they'd kill him if the police interfered.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We better play it carefully.
And you won't mention this note to your paper, will you?
No, not a word.
Good. Now, where's the street?
Well, Gerrard Street's on the other side of Shaftesbury Avenue from Soho. I'll show you the way tomorrow night. I'll go with you if you like.
Well, thanks, Conroy. I'd appreciate that. And right now, I'd better start raising 10,000.
£10,000 for the life of Whiplash Steele seemed to me about £10,000 too much. Or maybe I'm just a cynic. Anyhow, next day, Burns produced the money, and at 6:30 we set out together to find number 40 Gerrard Street. 36, 38. Yeah, there it is, number 40.
And there's the letterbox. Will I put the packet on top?
Yeah, so they can find it without any trouble.
And now what?
Well, I guess we go home and wait. Unless...
Unless what?
Well, if we went over the road and down to that doorway, we could stand there in the shadows and wait
for
no,
Mr. Conroy, I know.
Yeah, but look...
A man's life is at stake.
Okay, you win.
Are you coming back to the suite?
I'll be there in a couple of hours. I've got a few things to do. If Whiplash should show up in the meantime, will you phone me at my hotel? I'd like to be first with the story.
I'll do that, Mr. Conroy, I promise you. And I hope and pray that the news you give your paper will be good news.
I had no intention of going back to my hotel, of course. As soon as I saw Burns into a cab, I did a sharp about turn and went back to Gerard Street. I stood in a doorway and waited. I saw a tall, dark figure slink along the street and pull up before the red letterbox. He took the packet of crisp 5-pound notes, looked very carefully around them, and then walked off in the direction from which he'd come. I waited until he'd turned the corner, and then I followed. If you ever want to follow somebody, do it in Soho. You'll never find a better place. In Soho, if you're not up to something sinister, you feel you ought to be. As I followed the kidnapper along Frith Street and down a narrow alleyway, I felt I was doing the normal thing for Soho. He stopped at the doorway of a tall, thin, gray brick house and knocked. When I saw who opened the door for him, I almost fell backwards in surprise. I walked quickly out of the shadows. Well, if it isn't Mr. Steele.
Conroy.
Mind if I come in, too, Whiplash?
What are you doing here?
Well, I'm paying a social call like this fella here.
Mr. Fuller, Gus?
You fool. I thought I told you to be careful.
Don't worry. I'll take care of
Hold it. Come in, Conroy.
Thanks.
Hello. We kidnapped somebody else.
Shut up, you. Fine pair of nincompoops I picked.
Here now, lay off the language, Cap. Me and Charlie ain't used to that sort of talk, are we, Charlie boy?
No, we ain't. It offends us.
Don't you think you should introduce me to your friends, Whiplash?
Friends? Why, they're...
Now, manners. Now, I'm Charlie, Gov, and this is my mate, Dick.
Roger.
Am I correct in assuming that Mr. Steele employed you both to help kidnap himself?
That's about the strength of it, as you might say.
Conroy, if ever you breathe a word of this here to anybody, I'll kill you.
What with? Your nickel-plated 6 guns?
Out! Conroy, I didn't mean that, partner. I guess I get a little hot under the collar sometimes.
Yeah, I guess you do.
Look, I'll tell you what. There's no reason why we should have any difficulty about this here matter. Conroy, you go away and forget you ever saw anything tonight, and I'll pay you £1,000. Now, what do you say? Okay, then. 2,000 it is. Oh, what the heck you want, then?
Well, first and foremost, a story.
About what?
About why you kidnapped yourself.
What'll you do then?
Well, it remains to be seen.
You won't print it?
I'm not promising anything.
Okay. I guess you hold all the aces, don't you?
Uh-huh.
Fellas, can you leave us alone for a while?
It's a pleasure, isn't it, Charlie?
Yeah.
We'll go and make a nice hot cup of tea. Off to you, Charles.
Sure, I'm sure.
Where'd you pick up that circus?
In a pub.
Well, I'm waiting.
What do you want me to tell you?
Everything. The lot.
Okay. For a start, my name ain't Whiplash Steele. It's Alfred Skinner. I come from Arizona right enough, but my pappy don't own no ranch. He's got a garage in Greensboro.
Uh-huh.
That surprises you, I guess.
Nope.
No.
Nothing surprises a reporter.
I've been living a lie, Conroy, for the past 3 years. Ever since I sang that song of mine over the local radio station and got offered a recording contract. I had no say in my life, past, present, or future.
Mm-hmm.
Overnight, they wrote a new story for me, and I had to act it out all the time. The only fellow who knew the truth about me was my manager, Jeff Gilson, but he got a bit too uppity, and I fired him.
And you hired Burns, eh? A defenseless little guy you could bawl out whenever you liked.
You want to put it like that? Yep. But he didn't know my life story was all a fake, and he still don't. So he fixed me up the store in that rodeo at the White City.
Well?
Boy, you should have seen what I had to do. I had to ride out in a bronc, the meanest old bronc they could find. I had to team it right there in front of 50,000 people. And Kanoi, I've never been near a horse in my life. I'm scared stiff of horses. And it ain't no joking matter.
Yeah, so you decided on having yourself kidnapped.
It was the only way I could think of. I was desperate, Kanoi. There was no way out of the contract. And if I went along to that rodeo, I'd break my neck. So I had to walk around sore. I got to talking to them two fellas at a bar. Told them what I wanted done, and they agreed to help me for 500 pounds each. Well, you know the rest.
2 teas coming up?
Oh, thanks.
Not at all. Pleasure, innit, Charles?
Not half.
You own this place?
No, Gov. It's been empty for a couple of years. Me and Charlie found out how to open the front door, and we use it as our London residence. Kind of headquarters, if you know what I mean.
And we hope you'll be very comfortable here. Because we're going to lock you in for a while.
What?
Hey?
Yes, Gov. We've decided to take a trip abroad. And we're taking the £10,000 with us.
Look, you two, you can't run off with my 10,000 pounds. It's robbery.
I suppose it isn't that. Now, if you'll just hand over the parcel of notes, Charlie and me will leave you two gents to swap stories.
You'll get your 500 each and no more.
No, that's not fair. A £10,000 kidnapping should be worth 10,000. Right, Charles?
Right.
Now, hand over like a good boy.
Why, you are...
How'd you like that left, Charles?
You should be in pictures.
Here, you put the money in your pocket.
You won't get away with this.
I think we might, Gov.
We'll yell for help.
Nobody'd hear you. Or if they did, they wouldn't take any notice. This is Soho. Well, gents, Sarah, we'll ring the coppers from Paris or Rome and tell them to release you both. Toodaloo.
Kanoi, what are we going to do?
Well, what can we do? They built these houses pretty solidly. The only window is that one up there near the roof. They both have to be about 50 pounds lighter to get through it.
And what about the door?
Yeah. Maybe if we both got hold of that table. And... Here, give me a hand. Here. We'll use it as a battering ram and try and break in the panels, right?
Yep.
Okay. After 5 minutes, one of the panels finally gave way. I reached my hand through the opening and discovered that our two chums had left the key in the lock. In a matter of moments, we were free. There you are, Whiplash.
I wonder where the nearest phone is. I'm going to get the cops onto those two guys. They won't be taking no vacation on my 10,000.
Wait a minute. Have you figured out what'll happen when the police catch them? The story will come out. They'll tell everything.
Holy smoke. What's it matter? You'll write it up anyway.
Well, I've been thinking about it, Whiplash. I must be frank. I don't like you or anything about you, but on the other hand, I don't use my column to ruin a man's career. I'm going to write the story, yeah. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 3 months. Enough time for you to finish your tour of Europe and get back home.
I guess that's something new for a reporter to be human. That means I got the choice now of letting them two crooks get away with the 10,000 or get the money back and have the story come out.
Well, that's just about it.
What's 10,000 anyway? Chicken feed.
We caught a cab in Shaftesbury Avenue and headed back toward the hotel. Whiplash knew that as soon as it got around that he'd been released, Scotland Yard would be clamoring for the full story. So he invented 2 fictitious characters with fictitious names and had his story all ready. When we reached the suite at the Ritz, we were welcomed by an overjoyed Burns.
You don't know how pleased I am to see you, Whiplash, buddy. Why, we were imagining all sorts of things, weren't we, Mr. Conoy?
I guess I was lucky to escape with my life.
You feel okay, though, do you? I mean, you haven't been beaten up at all.
No, I'm fine.
Good, good. Come on, then. It's nearly 9 o'clock. There's still time.
Time for what?
Here, grab your cowboy suit and your 6 guns. You can change into them when you get there.
When we get where?
Why, to the rodeo.
Rodeo? Oh, I'd forgotten. What time is it?
9 o'clock. You don't appear until 9:30. Come on, buddy.
But Burns,
Hurry, hurry. We've no time to waste. Mr. Conoy, we'll see you later.
Yeah, so long, Whiplash, and good luck. With all the excitement, Whiplash had forgotten that he wasn't supposed to show his face until after the rodeo was over and done with. This time there was no way out. He rode that bronc for exactly 3 seconds. When he left for the States last week on completion of his European tour, the bruises had just about disappeared, although he still walked with a slight limp. And you can take it from me, Whiplash Steele is one cowboy star who'll never retire to a dude ranch. I have it on good authority that he's going back to the garage business. There, the horses are all kept safe and sound under the hood.
You have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Conoy in another exciting episode in the series, Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again. We've reached the end of today's story, but I'll be back to introduce to you another unusual tale. Remember, for this series, we've searched the whole world to bring you stories of every kind. Tales of espionage, suspense, crime, and intrigue by famous writers from every part of the globe. In fact, a selection of the finest stories that have ever been assembled in one series. Well, goodbye now till we meet again to listen to another of the world's greatest mysteries.
Presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. On a street in Paris, there's a sign denoting the entrance to the offices of one of America's famous newspapers. Out through the entrance, many times has come one roving reporter extraordinary. This has been his starting point for journeys to the capitals and villages of Europe. His aim has been to investigate, to search into, to find the secrets behind those mysteries that result in front-page copy and make the headlines of this famous daily. In a moment, one such story. It carries Mike's byline, and he tells it the way he saw it.
Presenting Europe Confidential.
Mike. Oh, Mike, he tried to kill
No,
me.
it's all right. It's all right now.
I killed him.
Well, it wasn't your fault. Come on, let's go down. We got what we came for.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
I work in Paris for the American Chronicle, writing a column called Europe Confidential. All of us gamble at one time or another, with a card, or fall of a dice, speed of a horse, well, even the life of a man. In the newspaper business, we gamble to get a story, because in our philosophy, the story is what matters above everything else. Sometimes the gamble pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. I guess this is an example of, well, you judge for yourself. It started in Paris at the Chronicle office when I had a visitor, a genial, small-time crook by the name of Jacques.
Good night.
Jacques, the gendarme's delight. What are you doing here?
I have important business to transact with you.
Well, I'm not buying information on the black market this week, thanks.
No. You buy nothing.
Oh?
At times in the past, I do favors for you. Now, I ask a return favor.
Yeah? What is it?
You know my friend Pierre Marron?
Big Pierre? The cat burglar the cops could never catch?
Oui, and now they never will. He died this morning.
Oh, that's too bad, Jacques. Anything I can do?
Listen to me, monsieur. Before he died, Pierre asked me to remove a great stain from his immortal soul.
Oh?
He was afraid that when he enters the next world...
Yeah, well, look, Jacques, you've come to the wrong guy. I've got no influence in those regions.
Mike, Pierre Marron gave me this note. He asked me to take it to the police.
Well, I understand your reluctance. You could always mail it.
Oh, yes, I could, but I promise it will be given in person. Monsieur Mike, how can I go to the police in person?
Why, Jacques, I'm surprised at you. Big Pierre was your friend and colleague. This is a last trust.
Ah, oui, but the police, they are not my friends. Could you not deliver the note for me? I am afraid.
Here, let me see the note. See? Well, I don't know why you should be worried about this.
Well?
Oh, well. Jacques, as you say, you've done me a favor or two in the past, given me information, told me where I could locate guys. I'll take care of Pierre's note for you.
Ah, merci, mon ami. You will take it to the police, huh?
Eventually. Don't worry, Jacques. Don't worry about a thing. When I'd ushered the grateful Jacques out of the room with as much courtesy as my eagerness would permit, I sat down and studied this note more carefully. 17 years ago, the note explained, in a little French town of Léon, Pierre Maron had killed a man. This note was his confession, a complete account of how he had permitted an innocent man, someone named Henri Dubois, to be accused of this murder. It explained that Pierre had hidden signed affidavits proving Dubois' innocence somewhere in Léon. Just where in Léon, he neglected to say. The police would be interested in this confession, of course. But then it seemed to me that before it went to the gendarmes, here was a story handed to me on a platter. All I had to do was dig for facts. So I started to do just that later the same day. I went to an oversized house in an exclusive district of Paris and met two lovely ladies, one old, one young, both of them named Dubois.
Ah, an American from a newspaper?
I write a column for the Chronicle.
Ah, yes. We sometimes take the Chronicle, monsieur. But I don't understand. You said you have some document that concerns my husband?
I don't think you can have anything of value for us, monsieur.
Wait, Louise. Let the young man speak.
The document concerns Henri Dubois. He was your husband.
Ah, yes, but Henri is dead.
Madame, how long has it been? Since his death, I mean.
Well, we don't know, not for certain.
It has been a long time.
Well, you needn't be delicate on my account, madame. I know.
You know?
Well, mademoiselle, I know that your father was accused of murdering a man in Léon 17 years ago.
He did not. Henri would never hurt anyone. He was not a criminal.
Well, I'm afraid the police don't share that view. When he escaped from prison before his trial, it seemed to clinch the case against him.
Clinch?
Well, it made the authorities even more certain of his guilt. I read the newspaper files. The case made a splash, even here in Paris.
But he had to escape. There was no hope without the paper.
Yes, I know.
You seem to know so much, monsieur.
Well, I know what you know, mademoiselle. Those papers were the evidence that could have saved your father. They were stolen.
Oh, this does not help us.
We have searched for 17 years for some kind of evidence that would have cleared the name of my husband. We have spent thousands of francs. Thousands.
What if you found that evidence now, madame?
Oh, mon Dieu, if we only could.
Madame, mademoiselle, those papers, they were affidavits proving absolutely that your husband was nowhere near the scene of the crime when it occurred.
They were? How do you know this?
I have the word of the man who stole them.
You have? Oh, Louise, I knew that someday.
The affidavits, mademoiselle. They're hidden somewhere in the town of Léon. It may take a great deal of searching, but, well, I'm willing to try.
Oh, if you could find evidence to clear my husband, you can ask for anything you wish.
I'll ask for just one thing, Madame Dubois.
Anything.
The right to this story. Exclusive. All the photographs I need, your personal story, and your daughter's.
But, Maman...
You have my word. You can put our private lives on your front pages. If only you find proof that my husband was innocent.
Yeah. Oh, hello, Duffy. Sure, I'm just about ready to check out. Oh, don't worry. I'll call you from Léon. Yeah, just as soon as I strike any oil. There's somebody at the door. I've got to go. Yeah, I know. Yeah, an editor's job is a thankless one. Well, cheer up. I'll buy you a drink at the press bar when I get back. Goodbye. Come in.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Oh, mademoiselle.
You don't mind if I come in?
Well, you seem to be in. What's this? Last-minute instructions?
Not exactly. I thought you would be leaving soon, and I was anxious to get here in time.
Oh, any particular reason?
I am coming with you.
You're... Oh, now, wait a minute.
Is there any particular reason why I should not?
Well, I can think of several.
You mean that what I am suggesting is not done?
Well, that's for a start. And then there's Mama.
I have discussed this with Maman. She's in full agreement that I should go with you. Besides, I have a car outside. It will be so much more comfortable than traveling by the railway.
You know, you're beginning to break down my objections. All right, but you'll have to pack in a hurry. Now, you go on home and get ready.
No need to. My luggage is downstairs, waiting in the car.
Well, how could I go on arguing after that? Besides, two's company, and the company was definitely a doll. Our first glimpse of Leon was from a hill behind the city. The red tile of the rooftops glistened in the warm sunlight. A quiet little mountain town that was incapable of coping with giddy tourists on expense accounts. As we entered Leon, I wondered how murder, misdirected justice, and hidden evidence could possibly fit within its limits.
Clever, Mike. You've taken us directly to the center of town.
Well, I couldn't miss, honey. Only one road into the place. Is that a hotel over there?
Oh, it is the hotel.
That must be the town's official greeter. Out you go.
Oh, merci. Oh, goodness gracious.
Please, good travel, spare me a few francs. I will watch the car for you. My mother is ill, my family dying of hunger. Good sir, please help me.
He'll watch the car, Mike.
Yeah, official greeter. There's one in every town. His family starving, the old story,
Oh,
huh?
let's give him a few francs.
Go away. Get out of here. Good sir, please help me. Good sir.
Looks like the greeter was just sent into retirement.
Your pardon, monsieur, madame. Welcome to Leon. You will find the hotel very comfortable. A beautiful room I have for you.
We followed the little manager across the tiled lobby and up the rickety stairs. I guess it was as well he'd never had any competition. Otherwise, Leon's leading hotel might have been out of business. The sleepiness of a town is welcome sometimes. Leon was even sleepier than most small French towns. At night, when you'd expect it to come to life, it didn't. It remained sleepy as before. Good for the nerves, unless you were trying to awaken a memory 17 years old.
Pierre Marron?
17 years ago, he lived here. Big Pierre, he was called.
No, I don't know this man. 17 years, monsieur, that is a long time.
Yeah, we began to find it out after a solid 12 hours of covering bars and the cafes. We began to find out that 17 years is maybe just too long. Some people had heard of Big Pierre in Paris, but nobody remembered him in Leon. We split up and tried alone, then teamed up again, without anything good to report.
Did you find anything, Mike?
Oh, nothing. Tough job.
Perhaps we're making a mistake. What about my father?
Huh?
It would be easier to find someone who remembers him. We can start from there.
Are you out of your mind? Mention your father's name. Just mention it around here, and you'll have not only the police down on us, but we'll have every cheap confidence man in the place on our hands trying to find out what we want, plus the newspaper men.
But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, we have to rest somewhere, too. My feet are killing me. Let's go back to the hotel, huh?
Mike, what are we going to do?
Keep plugging.
But it seems so hopeless. It would be better if we started finding people who knew my father.
I told you that would bring every news hound in France buzzing around here if the word got out.
That's more important to you, isn't it, than clearing my father's name? Your story. It's the only thing that matters.
Sit down.
You don't even care.
I said sit down. That's better.
Oh, Mike, what can we do?
Oh, now, come on. There's nothing to cry about.
I'm sorry. I can't help it.
Here, come here. Come on.
Mike, please. No.
You know, you're a very lovely girl, Louise.
No, Mike.
Somehow I kind of hope this search of ours isn't too successful too soon. Well, things improved in Leon during the next few days. The warm, pleasant evenings. Louise. But during the hot, tedious days, we searched and searched and searched. After one of our times together, I left Louise at her door and headed for my room. When I opened the door, there was a surprise waiting. I had a guest, the wizened old beggar who'd been the first to greet us on our arrival in Leon. His greeting this time was a little violent.
Oh! I have been waiting for you.
Hey, what, you? Oh! No, you don't. Who the devil?
You tried to kill me. You died.
You? What are you doing here? Come on now, what do you want?
No.
Panhandling business falling off? Robbing hotel rooms now, eh? Well, we'll see what the cops have to say about this.
No, not the police.
All right, let's have it. What's it all about?
You come to kill me.
What are you babbling about? Who wants to kill you?
Pierre Marron. You look for Big Pierre. You come to kill me.
Pierre? What's he got to do with it? Hey, come back here, you. Pierre? Pierre? It was like a flash of light. Yeah. Suddenly in that crummy hotel room I knew. Henri Dubois, the beggar, the wizened old car-watching beggar. This was Louise's father. Buried in the dust of police records, rumors, and memory, but still alive after all these years. I had a story now, and what a story. I had a girl who didn't even know her own father. His identity buried under a scraggy beard and the guise of a beggar. Yeah, and a father who didn't even know his own daughter. Oh, I had a story, all right. Better than that, I had a chance to clear a 17-year-old miscarriage of justice. But it could only be done one way. It could only be done by finding those affidavits. And until they came to light, it would be pointless and pretty dangerous to tell Louise the truth about her father.
Mike, I thought we could go. Mike!
It's all right. Come in. Close the door.
What happened?
A little argument with destiny. I won.
Your clothes, they're all torn, and your face. Oh, Mike.
No, there's nothing I can't wash off with soap and water.
But what was it?
The old car park beggar.
What?
He must have been after my dough. He tried to kill me when I caught him at it.
Oh, Mike, you must be careful. We should go to the police.
No, I don't want to talk to the police until we clear your father. If there's any further trouble, I can handle him myself. That night there was no sleep. My head ached from the blow and from the thoughts that were tossing around in my mind. Where were those papers? Was Dubois himself searching for them? Had he been here in Leon ever since people presumed him dead? Should I go to the police and turn over what I knew? Somewhere outside my window, the church bell was ringing mournfully, incessantly. I guessed it, and the torrent of thoughts kept me awake, almost until dawn, and then I finally slept.
Ah, bonjour, monsieur.
Where's Louise? The mademoiselle, where is she?
At church, monsieur.
Church?
Oui. This is the patron's holy day in our town. At midnight, the bell begins to toll and does not stop until the sun sets tonight.
You mean to tell me it's going to keep up that racket till sundown? That horrible noise, that clankety-clank?
This clank, monsieur. It is the will of le bon Dieu.
Yeah, I need some coffee.
Our punishment, monsieur. We atone on this day for the great sin of Leon.
Yeah, it must have been a whopper.
Oh, a terrible sin, monsieur. On this day, 17 years ago, a man was killed in Leon. For this, le bon Dieu removed the music from the bell. It was...
Wait a minute. What happened 17 years ago?
There was murder in our city, monsieur.
And the bell?
A miracle. This bell was once of glorious musical tone. Then there came this terrible sin, this killing.
Yeah.
One of the men of Leon was taken by the police for this murder. Then there occurred this miracle.
What miracle?
The music left the tone of the bell, and this man was never seen again. He escaped. Some say he is dead.
It changed its tone overnight, eh? Before the man was brought to trial?
The will of the Lord, monsieur. Our punishment for permitting violent death in our town. Each year on this day, we pray that the music be restored to our bell. You say you wish coffee, monsieur?
No, not now. When the mademoiselle returns, tell her to see me at once.
it is too fantastic.
Of course it's fantastic. Bells don't change their tone the way you and I change our clothes. There's got to be a reason for it. A practical, fundamental, tangible reason. Look, this note.
What?
Pierre's note. Here, look. He admits it right here. He
Mm-hmm.
stole the evidence that would have cleared your father. He says he hid it right here in Leon.
Why did he not destroy it immediately?
Well, who knows? Maybe he intended to confess sooner or later. Murderers are seldom logical people. But look, now we learn that just before your father escaped from the police, the tone of this bell suddenly, mysteriously, miraculously changed from a melodious ring to that clank that we hear out there. Listen to it, Louise. Listen. What makes a bell sound like that?
I do not know, Mike. It may be... I don't know.
Well, neither do I. But tonight, when this town crawls into bed, I'm going to find out. And you're going to help me. It was midnight before the streets were empty. Louise and I entered the little church and climbed the ancient flight of stairs to the tower. Quiet now.
How will you get to the bell? The steps do not go that high.
I'll have to use the bell pull. Here.
Can you reach it?
Yeah, I've got it. I climbed hand over hand. I don't know how far, 10 feet, maybe 15. For a man in my doubtful physical condition, it wasn't easy. The bell made a horrible racket over me, and the sound grew in waves as I approached it, making me dizzier and dizzier until I almost let go. Finally, there was no more rope. My hand touched the inside of the bell, and it stopped ringing. The Malby Confidence was at a cockeyed angle and slipping away fast when I suddenly grabbed for the clapper and found what I wanted, a heavy oilskin wrapper tied around it, a bundle of the missing affidavits. One good tug pulled it away, and I stuffed it in my shirt front. Louise! The rope burned chunks of flesh right out of my hands as I slid down. Below me, I saw another figure struggling with Louise, trying to get past her. The two of them were wrestling on a narrow ledge at the top of the steps leading from the church itself. I caught one moonlit glimpse of their faces as I swung onto the ledge. It was the beggar, Dubois, Louise's father.
I want those papers. They kill you.
Before I could reach them, she got one arm free and hit him as hard as she could. Then she shoved, and he went over. Louise!
Mike! Oh, Mike, he tried to kill me! He tried to kill me!
It's all right, honey. It's all right now.
But I killed him!
It wasn't your fault. Come on, let's go down. We've got what we came for. No man can die twice. Henri Dubois was considered dead. The man who fell from the bell tower was a nameless beggar who had come to an unfortunate end. I could have told the authorities otherwise. It might even have made a better story. But I was through meddling in the lives of the Dubois family. Sure, we printed the facts the affidavits gave us, and it cleared Henri Dubois' name and made his widow and daughter very happy. But I kept wondering how different the ending might have been had I gone to the police when I knew the beggar's real identity. Or even had I looked back that night and seen him following us, knowing we were on the trail of the evidence he wanted. Yeah, how different the ending might have been.
Mike, it's going to be wonderful when we get back to Paris. So much has happened. I've been so lucky.
Lucky?
My father's name has been cleared, and I've found you.
Oh?
I love you so much, Mike. Do you mind if I say that?
No, I don't mind a bit, as long as you're not serious.
What?
I said I don't mind, as long as you're not serious.
You're joking.
Think so? Love isn't for the roving kind like me, Louise.
Mike!
That's a big zero. Nothing. Short-term romance is more my line.
Oh, I don't believe you.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. You see, this was an assignment. It was very pleasant, and we had fun together, but it's all over now.
You're fooling.
Not a bit. Stop the car, will you?
You do not mean a word.
I said stop the car.
I don't understand, Mike.
There's nothing to understand. A story's a story. You're letting a romantic diversion confuse the issue.
Where are you going?
To Paris, without any strings. It's been great fun, Louise. I'll see you around someday. We'll have a drink in the Carlton Bar.
Oh, what a fool I've been. Au revoir, Mike. Or perhaps it's adieu.
Adieu, Louise. I guess I was the fool. It could have been such a different ending.
have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy in another exciting episode in the series, Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again. Well, that was Mike's story. This roving reporter friend of ours certainly has what I think the journalistic profession calls a nose for the news. I'll be back again with another of these mystery adventures, and I hope you'll join me. Goodbye now, till we meet again to listen to another of the world's greatest mysteries.
Presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. Once again, it's my pleasure to bring you an intriguing story of mystery. Today again, we have as our storyteller the young American newspaper man whose home is Paris and whose beat is Europe. Europe, a continent full of all the ingredients beloved by mystery writers and yet in reality twice as mysterious. Today's story is particularly full of suspense and yet is founded on fact. Of course, the names have been changed, but little else. There's a well-known saying that truth is stranger than fiction. Our story today is not only stranger, but more thrilling, more full of suspense than anything fiction can offer. Come with me, then, on another journey to the places where only a man in search of adventure would travel. In a moment, our play begins.
presenting Europe Confidential.
Mr. Blake, I will be frank with you. There is much money invested in this race. If you are to win, it would prove embarrassing.
Are you trying to threaten me?
As I said before, I come as a friend with some good advice.
And if I don't want it?
Then my conscience would be clear, and anything that happens to you would be your own fault.
Get out, Peppina, before I throw you out.
Very well, Mr. Blake, as you wish. But consider what I have said. Consider carefully. Otherwise, today's race could well be your last.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
My name is Mike Connoy. I write a column called Europe Confidential for the Paris edition of a New York paper. One of the nicest spots I know in this part of the world is the town of Parlena in Italy. You've heard the name, of course. Parlena is where the big car race is held every August. Racing drivers from all over the world congregate there to risk their necks and their $30,000 racing cars for thrills, excitement, the honor, and a fat prize. And Mike Connoy goes, too, to lie in the sun, to drink good red wine, and, of course, to cover the race for the column. But who feels like work in a town like Parlena? The day before the big event, I wandered down to the pits in a half-hearted attempt to gather together a story or two from the drivers and their mechanics. And, as it sometimes happens, I met a guy I knew.
Well, if it isn't Mike Maloney.
Connoy, how are you, Rod?
Oh, Connoy, of course. Put it there, old man.
Long time no see, huh?
Yes, when was it? Yes, Le Mans, 1953.
Yeah, you came second, as I remember, but a close second. They tell me you're considered the favorite for tomorrow.
Yes, so they told me.
It's a nice-looking car you've got, too.
Oh, it's a work special, none better. And Joe's got the engine absolutely humming. Oh, you haven't met, have you?
No, I don't think so.
Mike Connoy, meet Joe Binks, the finest nursemaid a car ever had.
All right.
Much of Mr. Connoy.
Hi, Joe. I guess I can quote you as saying you're confident of a win tomorrow.
No. The other cars just won't be in it. You won't see number 11 for dust, Mr. Connoy.
We hope.
Oh, come on, Chief. You're not still worrying about that flipping monkey, are you?
Monkey?
A Plymouth silver monkey on a piece of string.
Well, I still don't get it.
Well, laugh if you like, Mike, but I've lost my good luck charm.
Do I sense a story?
Oh, you'd better not, or I'd be the laughing stock of the racing world. But the fact remains that I've lost my talisman, or fetis, whatever you like to call it. And I feel darn uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, but surely all this business...
Hello, we got a visitor.
Lynn Sakara.
The second favorite.
Yeah, that's right.
Good afternoon, Senor Blake.
Hello, Sakara. Trying out the track?
Just a practice run to stop me getting bored. I know every inch of the circuit. I know it like the back of my hand. I just thought I would inquire how things were with you.
Oh, excellent thinking. Never better.
I hadn't seen you for a day or two.
Well, we've been occupied tuning up the engine. I never do much running about directly before a race. I like to save my energy.
Well, some may think it a good plan, but this circuit can be very treacherous one, Senor. It can be a killer to one who is unfamiliar with it.
Well, I've been over it several times. It didn't strike me as being terribly difficult.
It is a far different matter when you are actually racing, as you know. Two drivers I knew very well met their death here at Palermo.
Well, that's a risk we all take, Sakara, in any track, no matter how well we know it.
Yes, I suppose you are right. However, I felt it my duty to warn you, and now, Senor, I must go. And in case I don't see you before the race, good luck.
Thank you, Sicaro. Same to you.
So that's the famous Nim Sicaro, huh?
Yes, my chief rival.
A nasty bit of work if ever there was one.
Well, pretty decent of him to warn you, though.
Was it? Well, possibly I'm hypersensitive, but it sounded to me more like a threat.
Threat?
Oh, I suppose it's just me. I've got a nasty feeling about this race. And even the thought of 20,000 pounds prize doesn't make me feel any happier.
And all because of a silver-ruddy monkey.
Yeah, come on, give, Rod. What's this all about?
All right. Well, you see, when I was a lad, I used to race motorcycles. Half an hour before my first real race, I found a silver monkey lying in the dirt of the pit. I was probably off some girl's charm bracelet. Anyhow, as kids will, I picked it up, put it in my pocket, and decided there and then it would be my good luck charm. Well, I won the race. And after that, I never raced without it, even after I graduated to cars.
You believe that this piece of metal has some sort of magic about it?
No, of course I
Well,
don't.
then why all
Well,
this
the
nonsense?
charm, it gave me self-confidence. While it was hanging around my neck, I could take risks and know they'd pay off. You know, I could go that little bit faster, take that bend a fraction sharper.
Yeah, but if you realize that it was all in your own mind, why, there's nothing to worry about. If you could do it with that monkey, you could still do it without.
Oh, Mike, I'm afraid I can't. And for that reason, I'm going to pull out. I won't be racing tomorrow.
Yeah, there was Rodney Blake, renowned the world over for his devil-may-care, breakneck driving, refusing to race because he'd lost his talisman. Can you beat it? Personally, I've no time whatsoever for this superstitious nonsense. I've walked under ladders, spilt salt by the cellar full, broken mirrors galore, and so far nothing's ever happened to me. Or has it? Well, Joe and I gave him a talking to. We tried to make him see reason. At the end of half an hour, we'd almost succeeded.
I suppose you're right. At least I know you're right. I'd be a darn fool to pull over. But even so,
If you didn't race tomorrow and the reason got around, as these things do, why, you'd never live it down, Chief.
But at least I'd be alive.
Look, isn't there an easier way out of this?
Well, like what?
Well, let's look for the monkey. Where do you think you lost it?
That's the trouble. I don't know. You see, I usually wear it around my neck, but yesterday morning I noticed it was gone.
We've looked everywhere for it.
My
Mr.
wife's
Connor.
turned the hotel suite upside down. There's no sign of it.
So the sensible thing to do is to forget you ever had a flipping talisman.
Or get a new one.
But whatever happens, Chief, you've got to race tomorrow. Tell yourself you've lost your nerve, and sure as eggs is eggs, you will lose it.
Well, I won't make any promises, Joe. I'll see how I feel about it tomorrow. And Mike, do me a favor. Nothing about this in your column, huh?
Well, I don't write a word, much as I'd like to. By the way, why don't you and your wife have dinner with me tonight?
Oh, love to, Mike. But I insist. You dine with us.
Oh, okay, then. Either way suits me.
Well, we're staying at the Hotel Napoli, Suite 206. About, 8 o'clock?
I'd never met Rod's wife before, but Janet Blake was a honey. She had the kind of blonde hair you can't get from a bottle, a pair of wide blue eyes and more curves than a scenic railway. She was very concerned about her husband's welfare.
No, Rod, I don't want you to race tomorrow, and that's final. If you drive feeling that you're going to have an accident, chances are you will. And I don't want to be a widow, darling.
Oh, just as I'd talked him into it.
I seem to be getting just more confused. One part of me says 20,000 pounds prize money, and boy, do you need it. And the other part of me says the only thing you'll win is a broken neck.
Oh, we don't need the money all that badly, darling.
Don't we? Have you seen my bank balance lately? Janet, are you sure you look everywhere?
I've done everything but tear the carpets up. I've mentioned it to the hotel staff, told them we'll pay a reward, but no luck.
Oh, I wish I'd never found that darn thing in the first place.
Well, if you hadn't, you probably would have placed your faith in something else. A lucky shilling, lock of your mother's hair, a rabbit's foot. You know, the funny part is that anything can give you confidence, just so long as you believe in it.
You know, I've never thought of it that way.
Another cup of coffee, Mr. Cannon?
No, thanks, Mrs. Blake. I've done very nicely. You know, a fellow I once knew started a Lucky Charms by post business. You fill in the coupon, post it off with a dollar bill, and he sends you a genuine Lucky Pixie Stone by return mail. All his advertisements began with the same caption. The Lucky Pixie Stone brought me a wealth of good fortune, and believe me, it did. He used to sell 50,000 of these things every year, and it was all profit.
Oh, dear, look at the time. As I explained to you before, Mr. Canoy, I have to go out for a while. You will excuse me, won't you?
Well, of course, Mrs. Blake.
I promised Helen I'd have a drink with her tonight. Helen Jorgensen. You know, the wife of the Swedish driver.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Ah, now, where did I leave my purse and gloves?
Here, right in front of your nose.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Hey, careful.
Oh, that was clumsy of me.
Here, let me help you pick it up.
No, thank you, darling. It's all right. All right.
I don't know where you find the most odds and ends, in a man's pockets or a woman's purse.
There. And now I must rush. Goodbye, Mr. Canoy. It's been so nice meeting you. Perhaps we'll see you tomorrow. We can watch the race together, all three of us.
Yes. Good night, Mrs. Blake.
Bye, darling. Be back in an hour or so.
All right, Pet.
And don't let Mr. Canoy talk you into anything. I'd rather have a live husband than a dead one.
Well, I suppose that settles it. I don't race tomorrow. The decision's been taken from me, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Rod, will you pardon me if I leave now? I just suddenly remembered I'm supposed to phone my editor in Paris with some sort of a story.
Oh, you can do it from here if you like.
Well, thanks. No, I've got to write it out first, so I better go back to my hotel. Anyhow, thanks for having me. I'll see you tomorrow sometime. My excuse sounded pretty weak, I know, but I wanted to get out in a hurry. I was puzzled about Rod's wife. You see, when Janet dropped her purse and spilt the contents on the floor, I saw her hand close on something and shove it quickly out of sight. You'd never guess what it was. Yeah, a silver monkey on a piece of string. When I came out of the hotel, Janet was way down the street, almost out of sight in the dark and walking fast. I followed. After 15 minutes, she stopped outside a 3-story apartment house. I watched without any qualms. She pressed a dainty finger on the bell, and who should open the door and take her in his arms but Nim Sicaro? Dear Dorothy Dix, when a guy discovers that an acquaintance's wife is being unfaithful, what should he do? Me, I decided to shut up about it, for the time being at least. However, next morning, first thing, I dropped into a jeweler's shop and made myself a small purchase. That done, I went down to the pits and presented my small purchase to Rod Blake. Have you ever seen a racing driver jump for joy?
Mike, old boy, it's it. It's the monkey.
Yeah.
Joe, come here. Look.
What's up, G?
He's found my monkey.
Well, I'll be...
What wonderful luck.
Oh, I thought you said you'd looked for it.
Well, so he did.
I found it not 30 feet from here, lying in the dust.
I don't know how to thank you, Mike. You're just in time. I was about to hand my withdrawal in to the chief steward. Now, this changes everything.
So you'll be racing after all?
By Jiminy, I will be.
Ah, that's what I like.
Oh, excuse me a moment, Mike. I'll get Janet on the phone. Is she going to be pleased?
As the time for the race drew nearer, Rod and his team of mechanics fussed around the car like a bunch of happy kids on Christmas morning. It was 12 noon, and Rod and I were sipping a cup of steaming coffee when we had a visitor.
Excuse me, is Mr. Blake here?
I'm Blake. Can I help you?
My name is Pepe Papina. You have heard the name, no?
Yes, sir. I believe I have.
Excellent. I wonder if you and I could have a few words alone. I'm sure this gentleman will excuse us.
Oh, sure.
Wait on, Mike. A few words about what?
I would prefer to tell you alone, Mr. Blake. You see, it is something rather personal about the race.
You can say it in front of my companion.
Very well. First, Mr. Blake, let me say that I come as a friend, as you possibly know. I and many of my acquaintances make our living from speculation.
Pepina, of course. This guy's one of the biggest gamblers in Europe.
Thank you. Mr. Blake, there is much money invested in the race this afternoon.
And?
Frankly, Mr. Blake, it would be embarrassing were you to win. Knowing how ruthless my colleagues can be, I felt it was my duty to come here today and warn you.
Are you trying to threaten me?
Not at all, Mr. Blake. It is not I who threaten. Why, that would be a criminal offense, would it not? I come here simply as a friend with some good advice.
And if I don't want it?
Then my conscience is clear. And anything that should happen to you would be your own fault.
Get out of here, Peppina, or I'll personally throw you out.
Very well, Mr. Blake, as you wish. But consider what I have said. Consider it carefully.
Phone the police, Rod. Let them take care of it.
Police, what could they do?
Well, arrest him. You've got me as a witness.
Arrest him for what? Giving me some advice? No, he couldn't do anything. Anyhow, it's only a bluff.
Well, I'm not so sure.
They wouldn't be game. Besides, what could happen to me? I'll be wearing my silver monkey.
1:30 p.m. In 30 minutes, the race was due to begin. I wished Rod all the best and then went to see the chief steward. I told him my story and then made a rather unusual request of him.
But, Mr. Connoy, nothing like this has ever been done before.
I know.
But if what you say is true...
I assure you it is.
We should put the matter in the hands of the police. But as you say, what could they do? It would mean, among other things, a postponement of the race.
Believe me, what I suggest is the only way.
Very well, Mr. Connoy. In the interests of fair play, I will do it. Menko, come here, quickly.
I walked back through the crowd until I was in a position where I could see the entrance to the pits. The cars were being driven slowly into their starting positions along the track. A car with number 3 emerged. It was Nim Sakaro. Then a few moments later, the other car came out, number 11, Rod Blake. I could see Rod waving goodbye to Janet. I waited no longer. I walked to the back entrance to the pits and stood in the crowd. A few seconds later, Janet Blake hurried out, and I followed her. I didn't even see the start of the race. All I heard was a scream of engines and a roar from the crowd. I was busy trailing Janet Blake for the second time in 24 hours. She was walking towards the west end of the track, some 2 miles away. There were hardly any spectators up this end, hardly anybody except Janet trudging through the long grass and me following. She disappeared over a small hill. I walked to the top and found myself peering into the wrong end of a .30-30 rifle. It was Pepe Peppina.
Put up your hands.
Surprise, surprise, Mr. Connoy.
Oh, not so much of a surprise, Mrs. Blake. I guessed who you were going to meet. You see, I saw you and Sakaro last night.
Frustrated detective, are you, Connoy? But you wouldn't have made a very good one. I've known you were following me for the last 10 minutes.
Here, gag him with my handkerchief, and tie his hands with this cord.
With pleasure.
No, look, wait a minute.
I will not hesitate to shoot.
Look, there's something you ought to know. You see,
There we are.
With your breath, my friend. Walk over there where I can watch you. Sit down. That's it.
You saw the monkey in my bag last night, Connoy, didn't you? I thought I got it out of sight in time, but apparently I didn't. Yes, you're right. I stole it in an attempt to stop Rodney racing today. And it would have worked if you hadn't given him that phony one this morning. I know you can buy them easily enough. Now we may have to cause an accident, and it'll be all your doing.
There he goes. Number 11.
And there's Nim, right behind him.
24 more laps to go.
And if dear Rodney's still leading on the last lap, he'll have the smash of his life. And all the good luck charms in the world won't save him.
what could I do but watch? As the race went on, the 2 cars in question held their lead. Peppina, from his vantage point, had a perfect view of the sharp turn at the end of the track. The cars had to slow down to negotiate it. As the two cars neared the turn on the last lap, Peppina lay down on the grass and pushed the stock of the rifle against his shoulder.
Which one's leading? Can you see?
I think it's... Yes, number 11.
Rodney, the fool.
Fool indeed.
Pepe, please be careful.
I am aiming for the tire, not the man.
The car zigzagged along the track as the driver fought to regain control, but Peppina's bullet had done its job. The car veered into the safety fence with a sickening crash and burst into flame. At that moment, half a dozen uniformed police appeared over the brow of the hill. Peppina grabbed Janet's arm and they tried to make a run for it, but they didn't get too far. By the time somebody released my bonds, the pair were being led back, handcuffed to a pair of tough-looking cops. An ambulance had reached the burning car, but I'm afraid they were too late.
I didn't have anything to do with it. He fired the shot.
I would advise you to leave the accusations until later, Senora.
We did not mean to kill you.
Nevertheless, Nim Secaro is dead.
Nim? No, you're making a mistake. He's in car 3.
No, Senora. At the last minute, the stewards had the numbers of the two cars changed. Number 3 became a number 11, and number 11 became a number 3. That is Nim Secaro who lies dead in that car, not your husband.
Give it to me straight, Mike. Right from the beginning.
Oh, okay. Janet and Nim Secaro planned to run off together right after the race today. Secaro introduced her to Peppina, and the three of them put their heads together. They decided they would back Secaro for a fortune, and Janet's job was to stop you from racing.
Go on.
So she stole the monkey, knowing how much you depended on it. By this morning, when I handed you the fake monkey, they knew they'd have to try something else. Peppina came and tried to warn you off, but you weren't having any. So he and Janet decided that rather than lose all that dough, they'd shoot a tire if you were leading and put you out of the race.
And you saw the chief steward and asked him to change the numbering.
Well, it was the only way. I had no idea exactly what they were going to do,
But why did Secaro try to win if he knew they were waiting to shoot number 11?
Yeah, that's just it. He didn't know. Janet thought he would have been against it, so she didn't tell him. The police arrived a fraction of a second too late. Unknown to me, the chief steward rang the police immediately I left, had me followed. But they lost sight of me as I was following Janet, and by the time they found us...
I see. Well, Mike, thanks for saving my life.
Rod, I'm sorry about Janet.
Yes, I can still hardly believe it. I suppose you never can tell with a woman. I'll get over it, I expect. In time.
He did get over it, but it took a long, long time. Matter of fact, I saw Rod again last week at Le Mans. He won the Grand Prix. He told me after the race that he knew he couldn't lose. He was carrying a 4-leafed clover.
You have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy in another exciting episode in the series, Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again, and so our journey into the realms of mystery is over. Soon, however, I'll be back with more of these tales of mystery which I know we all enjoy so much. Well, goodbye now till we meet again to listen to another of the world's greatest mysteries.
presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. Once again, it's my pleasure to bring you an intriguing story of mystery. Today again, we have as our storyteller the young American newspaper man whose home is Paris and whose beat is Europe. Europe, a continent full of all the ingredients beloved by mystery writers and yet in reality twice as mysterious. Today's story is particularly full of suspense and yet is founded on fact. Of course, the names have been changed, but little else. There's a well-known saying that truth is stranger than fiction. Our story today is not only stranger, but more thrilling, more full of suspense than anything fiction can offer. Come with me then on another journey to the places where only a man in search of adventure would travel. In a moment, our play begins.
Presenting Europe Confidential.
There he comes. Hey, what's wrong? It's a bad landing. He looks like he's going to crash.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
This is Mike Connoy on another assignment for my column, Europe Confidential. I was with the crowd at Beauvais Airport outside Paris waiting for the first of the planes in the Singapore-London air race. With me was Eddie Marshall, another correspondent, and, well, strictly it was Eddie's assignment. He was the aviation expert. I was simply there to pick up copy to fill the column. As we stood in the crowd, high above us, the first of the racing planes appeared.
Oh, there she is, all right, Mike.
Can you make out who it is?
Where do I focus these glasses? Well, it looks like the English entry, Flight Lieutenant Murray.
That's the guy with the famous father, isn't it?
Yeah, he's right in Papa's footsteps. That's him, sure enough. He must be an easy leader.
There's the airfield, Frank.
And look at the crowd.
How do you feel? Well enough to take over?
Yes, I can manage now. All right, Tom. We're going down.
Here he comes now.
Hey, what's wrong? It's a bad landing. He looks like he's going to crash.
He's okay, I think.
Bad landing. He's slipping. I think he's got her under control now.
Yeah, it looks all right.
Frank, are you all right?
Yes, Tom. Okay, now. I'm sorry about that. I'm still a bit shaky.
Forget it. Come on, let's get up. Here, I'll give you a hand up.
Thanks.
Hey, what about some coffee? Hello. It's the official reception by the look of it.
Flight Lieutenant Murray, welcome to Beauvais and to France, monsieur. I am Marceau Léon, in charge of all airport arrangements.
How do you do, Monsieur Léon? My navigator, Tom Farron.
A pleasure, Monsieur Farron.
Glad to know you, sir. Can we have the plane refueled? Our tank's showing almost empty.
That will be attended to. While I escort you to the club rooms for something to drink. Or coffee, perhaps?
Coffee, I think. Don't you, Frank?
Yes. Coffee. Good. You have a compulsory 20-minute break before resuming your flight in accordance with the race rules. Your plane will be guarded from the crowds and serviced by our mechanic, so you've nothing to worry about. This way, monsieur, please. Lieutenant, our radio reports you 30 minutes ahead of your nearest rival, the Spaniard Lorcia. So you will be in the air again before he reaches his field.
30 minutes. That's better than I thought.
We'll be in London across the finishing line with plenty to spare. So long as the engines keep going, and you get over your sickness, Frank.
Sick? You have been sick with that flight, Lieutenant? Then perhaps that explains why you do not wish to talk to these American journalists, eh?
Well, yes, I didn't feel like press interviews, I'm afraid.
It is nothing serious, I hope.
Just a bit off color, monsieur. It's lucky. Tom here is a competent pilot as well as a navigator. He's been handling the plane most of the way from Singapore, even taking off and landing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear of it. But sickness would not stop Frank Murray if he is any son of his father, eh?
My father? You knew him?
Oh, everybody know your father, Flight Lieutenant. But that explains your landing, of course. I thought for a minute the plane would overturn.
Yes, I took over the controls for the landing. I didn't realize I was so shaky.
Oh, well, there is another 10 minutes before you take off. Perhaps I should call a doctor for you, eh?
No, I'll be all right, monsieur. Thanks, just the same.
All right. As you wish, monsieur.
A message for the lieutenant, Monsieur Léon.
For me? Thanks.
I didn't know you knew any girls in this part of the world, old boy.
Eh?
I said I didn't know you... Hey, what's the matter, Frank?
Matter? Well, nothing. Look, I've got to see someone outside, Tom.
Go right ahead. But don't forget the time limit's coming down. About 9 minutes to take off.
I'll be there, don't worry. Where's the lady who gave you this?
Outside, monsieur. I'll take you to her.
The lieutenant is not well, Monsieur Farron.
No, he's not. Something's been bothering him ever since Singapore, and I'd like to know what it is.
Perhaps it is the stomach, the nerves. His father was the greatest flyer I have ever met, but he was always troubled by nerves before takeoff.
I'm not sure what it is. Look, if you don't mind, I think I'll get over to the plane. I want to check everything is ready for the last lap to London.
The 9 minutes time limit ticked away, and with the plane refueled, Navigator Tom Farron prepared for the last stage of the air race.
30 seconds to go.
What the devil's happened to Frank? He knows our time for takeoff.
This is strange. I expected him to be standing by. Already we have put 2 calls over the loudspeakers, and the crowd is beginning to wonder at the delay.
Well, put another one over, will you? He must have completely forgotten the time.
Certainly. Oh, look, monsieur.
What is it? Frank?
No. Look, up there, to the southeast. A plane coming towards the airport.
Lorcia?
Yes, it is a Spaniard. And already he must have gained 10 minutes on you from your last radio report. If you delay much longer, the lead you have gained will be lost.
Don't I know it? But what the devil am I going to do about Frank? He's got to be found before I can take off.
I agree, it would be better. But nothing in the rule says you cannot fly alone.
Let's give him 5 minutes. Get that loudspeaker going, monsieur. Wait, I'm going to take a look round. He must be somewhere on the airport. He must be.
Eddie Marshall and I weren't exactly surprised when Flight Lieutenant Murray refused to give us an interview. After all, they were near the end of a long flight, and their 20-minute break was a welcome respite. No, we weren't surprised, but what did surprise and intrigue us was the series of loudspeaker calls for the English pilot and the delay in the takeoff. Finally, with the Spanish Lorcia only a brief 15 minutes behind, Navigator Tom Farron made the only possible decision.
Tell him to stand by out there, Monsieur Léon.
Wait.
I'm going to fly to London alone.
It made headlines, of course. The navigator who flew on and won the race, the pilot who disappeared. A whole series of rumors were started, and for 3 days the papers were full of it. But then, as always happens, public interest began to wane. There was tension in Berlin, the World Soccer Cup in Paris. The strange affair of Frank Murray was soon forgotten, except by those who had known him. I guess I didn't give it much thought until one day, several weeks later, Eddie Marshall came into my office.
Mike, boy, we got an assignment.
Yeah?
A double assignment. You for the human interest angle, and me because I'm a so-called aviation expert.
Well, what's cooking?
Mrs. Murray is in Paris.
Who?
Well, Frank Murray, you remember. It's his mother.
Oh.
She called up the chief this morning and asked if he'd be interested in making inquiries about her missing son.
She did that? What did the chief say?
What do you think? We have to get over to the Jardin Hotel to see her right away.
You understand, gentlemen. The police have made no progress, and so I asked for their inquiries to cease. I felt it should not be a police matter.
You want us to try and find him, Mrs. Murray?
Your editor is an acquaintance of mine of long standing. I have his word that the story will not be printed without my approval.
Oh, you can rely on that.
I simply want my boy found, and to know that he's all right.
Yeah.
If there's anything I can do to assist your inquiries...
Well, I guess you could send us some photographs. They might help.
Of course. I'm going back to London tonight. I'll send them by the first post. And your editor has promised to keep me advised of developments.
Well, you get all kinds of assignments on a paper like mine. And early the next day, Eddie Marshall and I got started on the story. We went first to interview Marcel Léon, the official of the race club who's been in charge of Beauvais during the actual event.
It is a terrible thing, gentlemen. Terrible. And there has been no word from him since, you say?
Not at all, Monsieur Léon.
The flight lieutenant was not well. He may have had an accident.
Well, we ruled out that possibility. Police checked the angle pretty thoroughly.
But what else could have happened?
Well, you and the police talked to that attendant who brought the note to Murray. What did he have to say?
Oh, he knew the young woman who sent it. But you can rest assured, Monsieur Connoy, that inquiries in that direction will get you nowhere.
What makes you so sure?
Oh, this young woman is well known to all of us here at the airport. She's a tiny pilot and a very respectable person.
What's her name?
Very well. But I hope you're not going to be rash about your inquiries, Mr. Connoy. Her name is Louise Renaud. She lives at number 21, Rue de Cherche, Arrondissement 4.
Number 21 Rue de Cherche was a narrow house converted into an apartment building. Louise Renaud lived on the top floor. I went to call on her alone because Eddie had gone back to the paper to cover another assignment, but we arranged to meet later in the day. I explained to Mademoiselle Renaud the reason for my visit.
But I do not understand, Monsieur Canoy. The police have taken a statement from me. I told them all I can.
Well, this is a private inquiry instituted by the mother, Mademoiselle. But suppose you go over it again, huh?
There is really nothing to tell. It was so stupid.
Stupid?
I am a trainee pilot, you see. Not a very good one, but my interest is in airplanes.
Yes, so I was told.
I hear that the flight lieutenant is due to land, so I go to the airport. I wish very much to meet this man, this famous flyer with the famous name.
Yeah, like the kids back home go chasing the film stars, huh?
If you like, monsieur. So many have told me about his father. So many have said that his son may be even greater. I am very daring. I write a note, and knowing one of the attendants, I asked him to give it to the flight lieutenant.
And you met him?
Oh, yes. He was very gracious. He talked to me, and then I left. I joined the crowd to watch him taking off. And then comes the news that he is missing. That's all I know.
You haven't any idea where he went after he left you?
Thought he went back to his plane, or to join the navigator.
Yeah. There's nothing else you can tell me?
No.
Well, I'm sorry to bother you. I'll get up before your guest arrives.
Yes? Oh, you've noticed the table. Yes, I'm expecting a friend for lunch.
Well, if anything comes up, I'll be at the office. You can always contact me there.
Monsieur Canoy, what could possibly come up?
Mike Canoy.
Mike, this is Eddie.
I was on my way around to see you.
Well, make it soon, will you? The photographs arrived from England. I think we got a lead at last.
I'd been away about 4 or 5 hours checking other leads after I left Louise Raynaud, and in that time a whole lot had happened. First of all, Eddie Marshall showed me the pictures. Say, she's practically given us the family album.
Well, just about, Mike. But ignore all those for a moment, will you? Take a look at this one.
Yeah? The guy in the Air Force uniform, so what?
The rank of Flight Louis. Now, you notice anything missing?
Missing? Well, I guess you don't mean to count as buttons. Rank stripes, or whatever the RAF call them, are there. Everything seems to be okay. Wings.
That's it. No wing insignia over his left pocket.
I forgot to put them on.
That's what I thought at first. But then I got on the line at the London office, and they made a fast check for me through the Air Force records. Mike, Flight Lieutenant Murray didn't wear wings because he wasn't entitled to wear them.
What, you mean he wasn't a flyer?
He was ground crew, recreation officer.
Well, I'll be darned.
Well, you can guess how I burned up the wires to London after that. I had Paul Davies assigned to it. He made some pretty fast inquiries.
Yeah, you've sure been at work. What happened?
Well, through the Aero Club, he found out that Murray got his pilot's license only a year ago. He failed his RAF test.
This beats everything. He's supposed to be a famous flyer.
His father was a famous flyer. From all reports, Frank Murray is a very bad pilot.
And yet he was in the air race. He flew that plane out to Singapore and then took part in the race. He was leading the field home.
Well, Davies got on the telephone in London and he talked to Tom Farron, the navigator.
Yeah?
He learned plenty. Farron met Murray for the first time a few months before the race when he applied for the post of navigator with the aircraft and got it.
Applied?
Yeah.
You mean Murray advertised or something?
Apparently. Anyway, Tom Farron was very tickled. After all, the name Murray in aviation isn't far behind names like Kingsford Smith and Lindbergh.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Not that anyone he asked knew much about young Murray's flying ability, but they all agreed he held the rank of flight lieutenant, and that if he was anything like his father, then the race was as good as over.
Yeah, so all through this thing, Murray's been billed as top ranker because of his father, because no one woke up to the fact that his RAF rating was earned in a recreation hut.
Well, that's about it.
Brother.
There must have been some people who knew, of course, but certainly Tom Farron never met any of them. When they left London for Singapore, where the race was to start, that was the first time they'd ever flown together. And Murray suggested that his navigator do most of the handling of the plane just to get used to the feel of it.
What a boy.
So Farron flew the majority of that trip, and occasionally Murray would take over for an hour or two, but always in the air.
Well, what about the race itself?
Well, Murray came to the starting line a sick man. At least that was his story. Tom Farron handled the plane most of the way.
And then Flight Lieutenant Murray took over and made that landing at Beauvais.
Yeah.
I remember you saying it was one of the worst you'd seen.
Well, Davies did quite a job on this. He knew that Farron had plenty of doubts about his pilot, so he let him talk.
Yeah?
Afterwards, he phoned up Mrs. Murray.
The mother? What did she say?
Not much over the phone to Davies, but just a few minutes before you came in, the chief got a long cable. She's pretty annoyed about the line our investigation's taken, and she says that her son is a great flyer. If we try to say anything otherwise, she'll make trouble.
Well, what does the chief say?
He says for us to get out and find Frank Murray fast.
We searched Paris. We checked the big hotels, the small backstreet places. We checked the bistros, the bars, Montmartre, Montparnasse, the boulevards, and the Bastille. For 3 days we worked at it, getting nowhere. At last we called a halt. We sat down in my office to try and figure out a new move.
Well, we sure covered some territory. There are hundreds more hotels to check even now.
Yeah, that's supposing he's even in Paris.
Yeah.
All we know is he somehow got away from Beauvais Airport. It's an hour's drive to Paris. But he could have driven to Le Bourget and taken a plane for England.
He could be anywhere. We need a break, and it just isn't going to be one.
Let's have a look at the guy's face again. You got those snapshots?
The family album? It's right here.
Thanks. Not that it'll make any difference. We picked out the best couple to show around.
There's nothing much else there. One in a group, and one street snapper, the girl the mother didn't know.
Hey.
What's the matter?
This street shot with the girl. Look at this.
I was taken in London. Mike, what's the matter?
She's the one I told you about. The dame I questioned. Louise Raynaud. Eddie and I didn't waste any time getting over to 21 Rue de Cherche.
Yes, Monsieur Canoy. That is a photograph of Frank and I. It was taken when I visited London last year.
And then you admit you knew Flight Lieutenant Murray before.
It seems as if I will have to. We met and became friends. Is that what you wish to know?
I want to know why you told such an elaborate lie before. What was the point?
Maybe Mademoiselle Renan was alarmed at the idea of becoming involved in any kind of investigation. People do feel that way, Mike.
Oh, yes, that's right. That was it. If it was known that Frank and I were acquainted, there would be talk that I was part of his disappearance. People were saying he might have been bribed to abandon the race, or that there may have been pressure on him to force him not to continue. I did not want to be mixed up in it.
Of course, you knew nothing of his whereabouts.
I know nothing.
Well, we'll have to continue our search. In case you hear anything, mademoiselle, you can reach us at the office. You know, I wish I could find Frank Murray. I think he's running away from a myth. As long as you have to live a make-believe life, you can never be happy.
A make-believe life?
Well, I've always said nothing's so big that you can't talk it out. That's why I'd like to find him. We went back to the office and we waited. We waited an hour. Then there was a knock at the door. There wasn't even time to open it before the man we recognized pushed his way inside.
Which one of you is Mike Conroy?
I am. You're Flight Lieutenant Murray.
Listen, Conroy. I came here for one reason only. To tell you to stay away from Louise Renault. Do you hear me? Leave her alone.
Oh, take it easy, Lieutenant. We didn't want to hound her. She's a nice girl. All we wanted was to talk to you.
There's nothing to talk about.
Look, we've worn the leather off our shoes, tramping the streets searching for you. The hardest pavements in the world are right here in Paris. Don't you think that gives us the right to a few minutes' conversation?
All right. What do you want to say? Make it snappy. I haven't much time.
It took us about 10 minutes to break down Frank Murray's defensive dislike, and another 15 to give him an account of our search and the discoveries we'd made. At the end of it, he remained silent for almost a minute. And then, very quietly, he started to talk.
There's hardly anything I can tell you. You seem to have it all, even the part my mother played in this affair.
We're not very clear about that.
Well, it's simple enough. My father was a great aviator, a man of the headlines. When he died, something went out of my mother's life. She used to say she hated the publicity, but that wasn't so. She missed it very much. She missed the adventure, the thrill of being the center of a crowd at the end of a record-breaking flight. When I was a boy, she filled my mind with the stories of my father and his deeds. She desperately wanted me to be like him, and, well, I grew up wanting that, too.
But you found it was a little beyond you.
I failed in the RAF and sat out the war in an office. Yet, all the time, I wanted to do this thing, to be like my father. And some way, after I got out of the Air Force, I found the courage to take flying lessons.
You got through those all right.
The instructor in charge was an old friend of Dad's. I don't think he should have let me through, but he did. Probably for Mother's sake, because he knew just how much it meant to her.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, I didn't realize that. I thought I was great. I had all the confidence in the world.
And you decided to enter the air race.
Yes, it wasn't a very important race. It seemed a good way to start. I was going to show the world, and my mother most of all. But I couldn't go through with it. I was sick, all right. When we took off from Singapore, I was scared sick. And by the time we reached France, and I was barely able to land the plane, I knew that was the end of it.
And then when Louise, whom you'd known in London, sent a note at the airport asking to see you, she was the logical person to turn to for help.
Yes, that's how it was. We got away from the airport in her car, and she hid me out while the police were searching for me. I knew that wouldn't last long. For Mother wouldn't have enjoyed that kind of headline, showing me up for what I was.
A coward, you think?
Well, what do you think?
Look, we're all of us afraid of something. Only you tried to make the thing you're afraid of your whole life. You've been trying to create an existence that'll carry on from where your father died. Nobody can do that. I think the sooner you make that clear to your mother, the sooner you can start to live a life of your own. Well, that's how the story finished up, with Eddie and yours truly distributing advice, hoping the guy would have the intelligence to see that we were talking plain common sense. Well, it turns out that he did. Louise Renan came to see me at the office a couple of days later, a radiant, very different Louise. Frank had gone home and laid down the law to his mother, and he was on his way back that same afternoon. Louise, incidentally, came along to ask Eddie and me to be witnesses. You need them in Paris when you decide to get married.
You have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Kanoy in another exciting episode in the series, Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again, and so our journey into the realms of mystery is over. Soon, however, I'll be back with more of these tales of mystery which I know we all enjoy so much. Well, goodbye now till we meet again to listen to another of the world's greatest mysteries.
Presenting the world's greatest mysteries. And now, your host.
This is Basil Rathbone. Everybody loves a mystery, and I'm no exception. And that's why it gives me so much pleasure to act as your guide on this series. You see, we've gathered together some of the finest mystery stories in the world. Stories from many places and from many times. Some of them are up to date, well, as up to date as today's newspaper. Others are classic stories of the past. Today's mystery, for instance, it takes place in Europe, the Europe of modern times, a world of intrigue and suspense where a man's life can count for very little when a country's future is at stake. Mike, our storyteller, works in the Paris office of a famous American newspaper. His job is to look for the stories that make the news, and he finds them in the places where the news is made. In a moment, our play begins.
Presenting Europe Confidential.
Stop, thief! Stop! Halt, or we shoot! No, don't shoot! Get to your feet. Stand up or let me have a look at you. And then we will call the police.
In a moment, we'll bring you Lionel Merton as Mike Kanoy, the Paris correspondent of a famous American newspaper, in another exciting story in our series, Europe Confidential.
This is Mike Kanoy. I was in Madrid covering a story for my column, Europe Confidential, when the affair of the stolen Van Gogh first made headlines. I wasn't up with the story as it unfolded. I had to fit the pieces together from what I could find out afterwards. But here, as it was told to me, is the way it happened. Larry Morrow wasn't in Madrid for his health or to see the tourist attractions. Larry was a clean-cut American boy looking for a chance to make a dishonest living. He had a letter of introduction to Senor Carlos Saville, the owner of an art gallery on the Plaza Cordova. He also had information that the senor was a man of good manners and no scruples. But when he called at the gallery Saville, it seemed as if he might have been misinformed, because Senor Saville sent out word that he was too busy to see anyone. And Larry went across the street to the bar of the Caserio to restore his morale and think this little setback over.
Oh, bartender. Si, senor, si. Dispense usted me the more.
Here, wait a minute. You're going to have to translate that. I don't talk Spanish.
I wish to apologize for my delay. The supply of rum was being exhausted. What is your wish, senor?
My wish is an absinthe.
Muchas gracias, senor. You see, we use much rum in this bar, the speciality of the house. She is a drink I have myself invented, made with 4 different kinds of rum.
Yeah.
The juice of the pineapple, that's correct. I was sprinkling
wait a minute. I'll have an absinthe.
Si, senor. One absinthe. But you would like my speciality, people from all over the world.
You make a mistake in ordering absinthe for rum, the popular beverage. What is it? Why? And your clothing. You should buy clothes in the stores of Madrid as soon as possible. Miss Emily Post, I presume. My name is Saville. Carlos Saville. Oh. And I do not make these suggestions for the sake of etiquette, Mr. Morrow, only for business reasons. I'm completely fascinated, Senor Saville. Please continue. In our profession, Mr. Morrow, we must dress as the multitude dresses. We must drink as they drink, act as they act. We must never call special attention to ourselves, but must seemingly melt into the background. Would I melt so badly?
Bring your drink, senor. Absinthe.
Oh, thank you.
For you, senor Saville.
I will have one of your specialities, Juan. You'll be over at the little table in the corner.
But of course, senor.
It was not judicious of you to come to my art gallery, Senor Morrow. You see, the business that goes on in the front rooms is quite regular. But there is a back room where some of the transactions are a bit less orthodox. Yes? My back room friends must not be seen coming into my establishment by my front room friends. You do understand. Oh, of course. You're not giving me your full attention. No, how could I? Did you just see what came through that door? Hmm? Ah, the beautiful senorita with the off-the-shoulder dress. Well, you don't miss anything either, do you? Not very much, I assure you, Senor Morrow. Well, who is she, do you know? If you and I come to terms, Senor, she is your first assignment.
Carlos Saville didn't go into further details at this first meeting. Instead, he turned the conversation to the arts, and in particular to paintings. Apparently satisfied, he arranged a second meeting with Larry the following day, and there they got down to the details.
Senor Morrow, I have a profitable business. Unfortunately, I'm a man whose reputation is known. There are, in Madrid, many new residents bringing in rich possessions.
priceless works of art.
And you'd like to get your hands on some of them, huh?
Perhaps I shall, with your aid. It is my desire that you make friends among some of these new residents. You can gain invitations to their homes and go through their private galleries. There are many such private galleries.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I could even get a job later as a tourist guide.
Your job will be to guide some of my friends to the finest, most expensive works of art in town. You must equip them with full descriptions of the galleries, the houses containing them, personnel, entrances, exits.
Oh, I get it.
Those who take the greatest risk will get 50%. You and I will divide the balance equally.
Okay, our souls have met. And now to the first assignment you spoke about, the senorita.
Little is known of the senorita Francesca Morel. She came here a few months ago from Italy. She rented an expensive villa, and she has invited only a few close friends to see her art treasures. But, according to reports, she is the owner of the most valuable painting in the whole of Madrid. An original Van Gogh, worth a fortune.
All that and an original Van Gogh, too, huh?
Yes. She came into my gallery one day. I indicated that my heart stood still at the sight of her beauty, but she remained completely aloof. I want you to make friends with her. I want you to manage an invitation to her house.
Well, even if Senorita Morel was the owner of a mere Cézanne, I think I wouldn't mind getting friendly with her.
I have but one warning. Should someone guess your motives, should there be trouble of any kind, you are on your own. I won't even admit to knowing you.
It was a deal that suited Larry Morrow right down the line. 25% of a fortune. All he had to do was be charming to a beautiful woman who owned a priceless painting. He figured he was a very lucky guy. He contrived an invitation to a few select parties and thus met Miss Francesca Morel. The only snag in the whole affair was that she didn't seem to find him quite as attractive as she should.
I'm very sorry, Senor Morrow, but I am busy tonight and tomorrow evening.
What about the following day, then?
No, I am sorry. The following day I have an engagement.
Well, the day after that, Senorita Morel.
Busy.
Well, look, surely you must be... Well, just one dance.
I am sorry, Senor Morrow. I seldom dance these days.
I've been teaching the locals how to do the tango.
I am sure you must be very proficient, but not now. I'm sorry.
Just one turn around the floor?
Some other time, perhaps. No, I'm sorry. I cannot have dinner with you.
What about a cocktail, then? Look, I'll call for you at your home.
I won't be at home. I have shopping to do.
All right, we'll meet at the Casa del Oro, then. One little cocktail.
You are very sweet, but I must refuse.
Now, there were two things driving him towards Francesca, his determination to pierce that core of cold steel and his desire to get that painting. He'd known women like her before, women with cash registers where their hearts ought to be, but it wasn't going to defeat Larry. He wanted a new bank balance, and he wanted Francesca Morel to be the donor. Well, that Saturday evening, Senorita Morel was giving a large dinner party for a visiting American diplomat. After a short study of the guest list, Larry chose as his target an undersecretary of the English consulate, a Mr. Henry Saunders. He studied him very carefully. He learned of some of his former posts and all of his weaknesses, including that of absent-mindedness. On Saturday evening, he followed the diplomat out of his hotel.
Henry! Henry Saunders in the flesh.
Yes, in the flesh, yes.
How are you, old boy? I heard you were connected with the consulate over here, but I really haven't had a chance to look you up. Oh, it is good seeing you again.
Well, yes, it's been nice seeing you again.
Imagine bumping into good old Henry right in the middle of Madrid.
Yes.
It's been a long time, Henry.
Look, I hope you'll forgive me. Frightful memory, you know, but I don't seem to remember quite where it was last time.
Oh, no, you're joking, Henry. The Shoreham Hotel, Washington.
Oh, yes, of course. Right, stupid of me. Washington, well, it must have been about 40,
1940 it was, exactly. Oh, you say you have a bad memory.
Yes.
Oh, this is really a break bumping into you. My first free evening since I got here. Oh, you got to have dinner with me.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I have a dinner engagement. Charming girl.
Oh,
having a bit of a party tonight, and I promised I'd go.
Oh, I'm certainly not going to say goodbye to you after being lucky enough to run into you now. Look, I hate these dinner parties myself, but Oh, then maybe you couldn't take me along even if you wanted to.
I dare say it would be all right, but...
Well, as long as you say it'll be all right. Now, you sure I wouldn't be intruding?
No, of course not. Why, a pretty girl like that would be delighted to have me bring a handsome young chap around.
Your hat, senor?
Oh, thank you.
Ah, here comes our host. You look simply ravishing, my dear. I want you to meet an old and very dear friend of mine, Mr. Larry Morrow.
I have had the pleasure.
Oh, say what I didn't know.
Sorry, Francesca. I didn't know Mr. Sanders was coming here. I bumped into him.
It's all my fault, my dear. Larry and I met accidentally, and I hadn't seen him in years. I simply insisted that he came along. I suppose I was so busy chatting about old times, I didn't get around to tell him who our hostess was.
I see.
I hope you'll pardon an old dapper.
Oh, yes, of course, Mr. Sanders.
Of course, you could call the police or have your servants throw me out.
I say, he is droll, isn't he, my dear?
Very. Well, come in and have a drink. The others are a little ahead of you already.
Oh, we'll catch up, won't we, Larry?
Well, I don't think I'll bother to drink tonight, Henry. I don't want a chance dulling my senses, you know. I understand Francesca has an art collection that's really worth seeing.
Ah, you are interested in art? Somehow I didn't think you would be.
I'm very interested.
Perhaps I've been wrong in my estimate of you, Mr. Morrow. I'll be glad to show you my gallery if you really think you'd enjoy it.
Miss Morrell, honestly, nothing could fascinate me more.
Dinner was an eternity of rich food and rich people, and long conversation. But after it was over and the party had broken up into small groups, Larry persuaded Francesca Morrell to conduct him on a cook's tour of her famous gallery.
Well, this is it.
That's magnificent. Well, there must be a fortune represented here.
Oh, it means little to me now. Perhaps someday it may have value for me again.
Maybe you don't realize what's wrong, Francesca. You're lonely.
This first painting is quite interesting.
It's lovely. That's a Degas over there, isn't it?
Yes,
And a Van Gogh. That is a Van Gogh, isn't it?
yes. When I first got it, I thought it was the answer to all my dreams.
It isn't now?
It's almost worthless.
Oh, Francesca, you can make things worthwhile again. You can learn how to dream again.
Please, Larry, you're hurting my hand.
Francesca, I don't know what's holding you back, but sometimes when we've been hurt, well, we build up a wall around ourselves. I know because I've been hurt. I've been lonely. Maybe neither of us has to be lonely again.
No, Larry. Please.
I didn't intend to kiss you by force.
I think maybe I'd perhaps better go back to my other guests. Look around the gallery, Larry. Take your time. Have your fill of it. When you're ready to rejoin the others, just pull the door firmly. It's self-locking.
The gallery was in a separate wing of the house, connected to a small sitting room, with only the self-locking door between. The sitting room had a large French door that led to a small balcony, and the street was only 7 or 8 feet below. On the other side of the sitting room was a boudoir, Francesca's. The servants' quarters were well away. Oh, it was a setup. Larry Morrow wasn't going to give this setup away for any 25% of the Van Gogh value. Let Saville take his 25%. It was going to be 75 for Larry, he figured, as he wedged a match in the lock and then rejoined the gay party of doddering diplomats.
Well, there you are, my boy. Did you manage to come out with the Picasso under your coat?
I tried, but it wouldn't quite fit.
I guess we all give our eye teeth for some of Francesca's paintings. She owns some real beauty, doesn't she?
Well, no, let's just say that she possesses real beauty.
Well put, old boy, well put.
Have a drink, Larry.
I really have to be going, if you'll excuse me.
Shank of the evening, Larry, shank of the evening.
I expect a pretty busy day tomorrow.
Well, if you must go.
Look, please don't bother seeing me to the door, Francesca. I don't want to take you from your other guests.
Well, goodbye then.
Adieu.
Good night, old boy.
Good night.
You are leaving, Senor Moro?
Yeah, I have to be going.
I will get for you your hat.
Oh, look, I hate to bother you, but suddenly I got pretty thirsty. Do you think you could dig me up a glass of water?
Si, senor. Of course, senor. I'll get it and be right back.
Oh, no, take your time. Take all the time in the world.
This was the one dangerous element of the whole scheme, his being seen now. He waited until the obliging Pedro was out of sight and then slipped down the corridor, hoping that they wouldn't start a fuss when he was found missing. He reached the gallery wing, slipped through the little sitting room, and into the room containing the Van Gogh. He took the little matchstick out and heard the lock click reassuringly. But just in case someone should come in, he took a position up behind a very heavy velvet drape. Hours later, he could hear the other guests leaving, the servants locking windows and doors. Someone rattled the doorknob of the gallery and then went away. He heard Francesca's door open and close. But still, he remained absolutely motionless. Until almost dawn. Until the silence was thick and heavy. He stealthily approached the priceless painting, took a small knife and slit the canvas neatly from the frame, rolled it up and slipped it into the lining of his coat. He held his breath as he tiptoed to the door and opened it gently. He crossed to the French door that led to the balcony. Below was the street, safety. The latch worked easily. He started to turn the handle.
Oh, my ankle! Oh, stop, thief! Stop! Oh, parachute! No, don't shoot. Get to your feet. Stand up. My ankle's killing me, Pedro. And then we will call the police. Oh, my ankle, Pedro. Pedro, you call me by name? Carlos, flash your light in his face. No. No!
Pedro, Carlos, what in the world is going on?
We have caught for you a burglar, senorita. A burglar. He is Senor Moro. I call the police, no, senorita?
Wait, just a minute. Larry, what is the meaning of this? What were you doing in my gallery?
I wasn't in the gallery.
What?
Look, I can explain this pretty easily if we were alone, Francesca.
Well, all right. Pedro, Carlos, wait outside.
We have our guns ready. You call if you need us. No funny business, senor.
Well, Larry?
Well, I guess I did a silly thing. Look, you wouldn't talk to me earlier, and I had so much to tell you. A lot of things I couldn't say in front of your other guests.
Larry.
I came back to steal something, all right. I wanted to steal a few more hours alone with you.
Larry, that doesn't explain.
I pretended to leave so I wouldn't embarrass you by being the last guest here. Then I stole into your little sitting room, and you didn't turn the lights on when you came through.
No.
I sat down on that comfortable sofa to wait for you, and guess I fell asleep. I didn't wake up until a few minutes ago, and well, it was almost dawn. I felt like a complete fool.
Oh, Larry.
So I tried to sneak out, and you know the rest.
Oh, poor Larry. Your ankle hurts you very much.
When you look at me like that, I can't feel any pain.
You'd better get back to your hotel and rest.
I guess I'd better. Could I phone for a cab?
Oh, I'll send you home in my car. Pedro can take you.
You're very kind, Francesca.
It was probably some sort of innovation, a thief being given chauffeur service by his victim. Pedro drove him to the hotel, and he picked up a few things there and then slipped out the back door. He knew it wouldn't be too long before the theft was discovered and the police would be looking for him. The thing to do was to deliver the painting to Seville, collect, and then skip out of the country. But it was Sunday. He couldn't find Senor Carlos Seville anyplace. He spent the day skulking in doorways, running from shadows, hiding in deserted spots. And finally, Monday morning came, and with it the newspapers, but he didn't wait to buy one. Instead, he made his way most carefully to the galleries of Senor Seville, and this time insisted on seeing him.
You shouldn't have forced your way in, Larry. I told you
I had to see you. You're going to be happy to see me, too.
Happy? Happy? You fool. You seen the papers?
I didn't risk buying one.
It's all over the front pages. Look. Van Gogh, stolen. The police are searching for you.
What?
Idiot. If you'd handled this the way I suggested, but you... Oh, no. You had to be greedy. I thought you could manage it all alone.
Well, I got the painting, haven't I? Give me my share and let me take my chance.
Painting? The painting is worthless now.
What do you mean?
You think I would handle anything so dangerous when all the police in Madrid are searching for it? Get out of here and take the painting with you.
Now, look, I gotta get away. I haven't any dough.
I'll give you enough to bribe someone to take you out of the city. Here. Now, get going, senor, and take the painting with you.
Oh, it was front-page stuff, all right. I read the story and remembered Larry Morrow as a clever confidence man, a little out of his depth in the genteel art of thievery. Meanwhile, in a fashionable restaurant on the Plaza del Franco, two people dined together in discreet alcoves.
My dear Saville, you're a genius. I'd love to have seen his face.
Everything went rather well, Francesca.
It nearly didn't. Those idiot servants of mine catching him after all our trouble to give him his opportunity.
Never mind, never mind. It will make an even more convincing story for the insurance company. You put in the claim.
Yes, of course.
Excuse me, senorita. The senorita Francesca Morrero, is it not?
Yes? Do you wish to see me?
Police, senorita, as you observe. They told me at your house that you are dining here.
What do you want?
A short time ago, senorita, we arrested a man trying to leave the city. We took from him a painting which he has admitted is the Van Gogh, stolen from your gallery.
Oh, you caught him?
Indeed, senorita. He is now at the police bureau awaiting identification.
Oh.
But the painting, we are rather puzzled about the painting. You see, we called in an art expert who says it is a fake.
That's impossible.
The insurance company say it was pronounced genuine by Senor Carlos Seville and valued at 2 million pesetas. I think if you and Senor Seville will interrupt your luncheon, there are many people at the police bureau who wish to ask you some questions. If you please, you will both come with me.
It was a very clever and a very elaborate plot, but they didn't get away with it. The idea was to employ Larry Morrow as the patsy. Let him get away with a worthless painting, heavily insured as a genuine Van Gogh. Had he escaped, their plan would have been foolproof. Instead, they went to trial, and after that, they went to jail. I'd like to have been around if ever Larry and Senor Seville met up inside of prison walls. That would have been a real human interest story, although it might have required a lot of sub-editing before publication. Goodbye now.
You have been listening to Lionel Merton as Mike Connoy in another exciting episode in the series, Europe Confidential.
This is Basil Rathbone again. We've reached the end of today's story, but I'll be back to introduce to you another unusual tale. Remember, for this series, we've searched the whole world to bring you stories of every kind. Tales of espionage, suspense, crime, and intrigue by famous writers from every part of the globe. In fact, a selection of the finest stories that have ever been assembled in one series. Well, goodbye now till we meet again to listen to another of the world's greatest mysteries.